Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
There she is in all of her glory for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. We were talking last time about Fievel, aka Wendi. And I said on the live stream, and sure it's timestamped, I said, I don't know if I can make it happen because I'm not a wizard, but there needs to be Fievel, right? Where Wendy's wearing Fievel's outfit, right? And I was like, I don't know if I can make it happen, but I'll try. Here it is. Here's Fievel. Of course, I've also made it an overlay, so we can actually do double Fievel. Are you guys ready? Hold on. Oh my God. You guys ready? Double Fievel. So there's an overlay. Also, for those in the Discord, we have custom emoji. There's also a Wendi Fievel emoji you can use in the Discord. YouTube put you in timeout. What is that? What? But happy to see you guys again, my friends. Miss Q, in case you haven't, I know you've been here a couple times. Same with MCAT. Both of you guys, if you want custom commands, such as, if I can type it correctly, such as this one, let me know, and I will pass the message along to my good buddy Nightbot. He'll set that up for you guys. But shout out to MCAT, shout out to Miss Q. Glad you guys think it's funny. Yes. Choked on your safety first, guys. There's a reference there to whatchamacallit. What is it now? Pineapple Express. Actually, doesn't he talk about shoes? That's funny. The quote from that is, always wear shoes in the house, man. Safety first, man, which is really funny because the last time we were talking about the problem with shoes, and I was quoting the birdcage and Agador Spartacus, who falls down if he wears shoes in the house. Anyway, safety first, people. So let me know, though, if you guys do want custom commands. So, guys, I didn't even realize tomorrow was Valentine's Day. Earlier, right from in between my lessons, I ran to the Harris Teeter, which is the grocery store across the street. I call it the Teat, suckle at the Teat. And I didn't realize it was Valentine's Day until I walked in, and I'm like, explosion in my face of pink shit everywhere. And I was like, holy mother of God. And then I was like, oh my God, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And I hate the color pink. So yeah, you guys can imagine how I feel about that. It's just pink everywhere. I don't even know why. Romulus, what is that? Why is that? That rings a bell. I don't know. Is that from The Matrix? I've never seen The Matrix. So yeah. Oh, congratulations. I didn't even know if you were male or female, but you're a mom. So, okay. Valentine's Day mom, son 22. Well, congratulations. Happy birthday to your son. That's awesome. Usually people are getting down on Valentine's Day. Isn't that why they say a lot of babies are born in, hold on, do the math. February, March, April, May, June, July, September, October, November. So November babies might have been conceived on Valentine's Day, ostensibly, if I did the math correctly. So all y'all November babies, your parents might have been doing the things. Yeah, what is that again, though, Miss Q? Not that it matters if anybody's male or female. It's just funny because sometimes it's pretty clear, and I didn't even think of it until I saw the mom part, and then I was like, that's when it dawned on me. I was like, wow, Oh my God, the fact that you know specifically what day, that is amazing. Got pregnant on Memorial Day. Wow. So something was in the air, I suppose, right? You have your own memory of Memorial Day. That's amazing. That is amazing. That is freaking amazing. That reminds me sort of for 4th of July, I'm not like a patriotic person per se. Never really cared about 4th of July ever. Fireworks are fine, I guess. I don't have any problem with them. But anyway, I never really cared. And then in 2022, I finally got out of, some of you guys have heard me tell the story about the situation I was in that was, it's hard to describe, kind of like a kidnapping situation. But anywho, I was in that environment for 5 years and risked my life to get out of there. It was really dangerous. And got Frodo, the piglet, and got to my new house. and unlocked the door the day that my lease started. My door unlocked the door, and it was on the 4th of July, which is funny because, first of all, the neighborhood that I live in, well, some of y'all have heard Greensboro's historic for like the Revolutionary War, like a bunch of battles were fought here. That's why one of the main roads is Battleground. We have like Battleground Park, and Greensboro is named after Nathaniel Greene, who was like a general or somebody high up in the during the Revolutionary War. And so like right near my house, a huge battle was fought in the Revolutionary War. And so what's funny is the neighborhood that I live, because it's historic, all of the roads are named for things like right adjacent to me. There's like Independence. I forget. They're all named. So the road I live on is called Colonial. So anyway, but it didn't none of that dawned on me until I was unlocking the door to come into my house with my Prius with my stuff and with the Piglet. And there were like fireworks, and this particular neighborhood, because of the history, they go all out for 4th of July. So there's like parades, and everybody, they paint the road different colors. And it's not necessarily like USA. It's more like from a historical aspect, which, I can appreciate that even more when it's like, that type of thing. But anyway, so it was like, here I was, and it was like 4th of July, and there's like all the stuff. And then I thought about like, Independence Day. So it was pretty funny. So now 4th of July has a completely different meaning for me because I finally was free. It's Greek mythology. Okay. What is the significance of that? If you want to, and Miss MCAT is saying it was a fertility treatment. So that's how you know. Okay. Well, holy mackerel. Congratulations, especially then. I know a little bit about how difficult that can be, and amazing that you that worked for you. That is awesome. That's really awesome. It was a kidnap sitch. Indeed. Yep. I think you even said that before I mentioned it, looking at the timestamp here. Yep. It was Independence Day for me. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. It was a whole moment. Yeah, we've got all kinds of stories. Someday I'll tell the bear story again for those who haven't heard it. And also someday I'll tell the knife story again, because I don't want to like tell the same stories all the time, but some of these stories are pretty great. So Confederates, but that's the whatchamacall, that's the Civil War, right? Yeah, that's the Civil War, not the Revolutionary War. This is the war in the 1700s, other war between the British. The British are coming, that whole thing. British are coming, that war. I don't think they were called Confederate. It's the red coats and the blue coats, right? So, with muskets, horses, lots of horses. Although I hate thinking about that, because I hate thinking about the horses. That wrong war. Easy to do. Because the thing is like with the Revolutionary War, there's like fewer like historic battlegrounds, than there are with the Civil War. People know all those. So that's especially why it's pretty cool. Like Greensboro has that history to it, because, also there weren't people all over the country, right? It was like just confined to a couple states in the East Coast. So North Carolina was one of those states. So yeah, I will say, I'm very happy to say, I don't think that the Civil War had many historic moments in North Carolina. I mean, obviously we would have been involved. I say we as anyway, the state would have been involved, but all of our like historic battle locations are Revolutionary War. So yeah, it is pretty cool. And for anyone who hasn't heard it, my violin is older than this country, because speaking of Revolutionary War, my violin was made before that even happened. Actually a lot longer, because 1776, right, is when did the Revolutionary War start? Let's just see here. But we became a country in 1776, and my violin was born in 1757. So it's like 19 years older than the country. So let's see. The Revolutionary War began. How is that possible? It says on here 1775, but how the fuck did the war last from? Well, then it says it ended in 1783. So this is not Wikipedia. Are you leading me astray? Because that doesn't make any type of sense. That doesn't make any sense. No, it's just in 1775, bitter quarreling between Great Britain and its American colonies. Okay, well, so fine. Revolutionary War started. Wait. I'm getting my numbers confused. So no, that does make sense then. Never mind. 1775. So then a year after that, we were a country, right? 1776. So my violin is 18 years. Yeah, 18 years older than before the war started. My violin was made 18 years before the Revolutionary War started, and it's 19 years older than the country. There we go. That's the math, and I'm sticking to it. I know, right? You can hear me. Well, I mean, yes, on my channel, if you guys go to playlists, I've got a bunch of violin playlists, so you can listen to that anytime you want. You know, from different recitals and whatnot. I also have guitar playlists, and the guitar is me at my house, and the violin videos are me on a stage with fancy dresses on, and you guys know the situation with the combat boots and not heels because of that whole story about how I fell over. So yeah, but also, so let's also take a look. I've got here, I wanted to pull up, where is it? Okay. This, for anyone who hasn't seen, I want to just pull this up too. So this is, shout out to Ascend for providing this in the Discord. This is the map, just to get a good visual, because there's nothing like a good visual or a good map, right? This is a good visual of Wendi. Okay. So check it out. So up at the top here, where it says 3303 Aquawood Dre, that's Wendi's house where she was living after, the divorce during the time of the murder, right? So if you look at the red dotted line, that's the normal path to get to Mosaic. Now, Mosaic is where she went for lunch, right? Now, if you look at Mosaic, look at how close that is to her house. And there's 2 liquor stores just next to Mosaic. So that's the path a normal person would have taken. Now, remember how she took the shortcut? Okay, the shortcut is the purple way. So she goes all the way down here. Then she comes all the way down onto Trescott right after the murder. Then she goes back out, because it's blocked, right? So she can't go across, but not like it's a shortcut anyway. Then she goes down and around here to ABC Fine Liquors, and then all the way back up to go to Mosaic. So again, that's part, we were talking about this last time too, how by purchasing that bullet bourbon the day of, when she would have had notice long before that, right? It gave her an excuse to go to the ABC store. And I mean, what's funny is the one she went to is close to Trescott. Look at how close that ABC store is to Trescott. Super close, right? But what's interesting is how far out of the way those are from where she lived and where she went to lunch. So, maybe what Wendi was thinking is that her whole story about that she would drive by Trescott every now and again because she's trying to cope with the divorce, right? She said, even though it was her choice, according to her. And then she also says in her interrogation but sometimes she's too sad. So she's too sad she doesn't drive by, but she is trying to cope. But maybe she figured that wouldn't be good enough. So she needed another reason. And so her reason is, I was going to this ABC store, and this is the shortcut. Anyway, so there you go. Right? I know. She couldn't help herself is right. Yup. So did you guys like the new intro video? Should we watch it again? Did you guys all see it? I made that because I accidentally deleted the StreamYard one, and apparently you can't get it back. But now I was like, well, that's super fun because we can make it all squirrely and do the fun squirrely things, and it's actually better anyway. So it was happy accident, as they say. So let me pull up. Here's what we're going to do. So we're getting the full scoop on Donna here. What we're going to start with is a quick little, whatchamacallit. Ooh, look at how, you guys, how funny is that, right? So, because I'm moving it to the other screen and it's like halfway. Isn't that wild? Wild. Okay, now we're going to scoot it on over there. Okay, so what I wanted to do, though, is real quick, I just wanted to take another little gander at Katie's PCA, which we've covered. But I just wanted to remind everybody, for those of you guys who are newer to the case, just how thorough of a case was built before the first arrests were made. Remember, Dan Markel was shot and murdered in July of 2014. The first arrest wasn't made, what was it? I think May 2014. So Katie was arrested October 26. Sorry. The first arrest was made May, I believe, of 2016, right? So almost 2 years later. And then Katie was arrested in October 2016, right? But when we look at the PCA, this was the theme that they had for the first, for Sigfredo, her baby daddy, right? And so this is like the background or whatever. But the thing that is so interesting is how did they solve this? How did they get to the first arrest, which were the hit people, right? So this is all, again, the theory of the case, but we're going to, so where did they start, right? You've got this law professor who's dead. Where do you start? So again, we're going to skip past the theory of the case and get to, okay, here we go. So they start with what was the victim's steps that day, right? Well, the first thing that they have is they have this Prius, right? They notice a Prius that's been following. It was parked at the fitness place, right? And they see it following him there and then following him leaving, okay? Then they analyzed it. So there's overlap here with Covert, right? Analyzing all the surveillance videos, and they pin it down to a Prius, but they give a 3-year range, right? And they have the color silver pine mica, okay? And they also notice a couple other things, the tinted windows, but this is crucial here. The SunPass transponder, okay? The SunPass transponder. So that's going to come up. That was crucial in terms of figuring out who the fuck was driving the Prius, right? So they got the car, but who's driving the car? So a subpoena was sent over to the Florida Department of Transportation for the SunPass toll records, right? Only one account listed a Prius as a customer vehicle that had a SunPass, okay? So they got the SunPass. Then they are able to figure out who owns the Prius. Well, it's a rental car company. Step by step, right? Right, I know the front. So I don't think they have the plates yet, but they do get there. They have the SunPass, right? So then they have the rental car company, right? And they're like, yep, that's our car. They contact the rental, and then they've realized it's since been sold. And remember, they didn't have any idea that there was even a hole shot in the car, right? Okay, so then here we go. So then this is where the stupid criminal stuff, right? So then they find the rental agreement, and guess what? Remember they had their Luis Rivera with the phone number, and then brother, and then it lists, I think it just says brother, but again, two phone numbers. I mean, Jesus Christ. So then they learned that the same Prius had a GPS device installed by the owner, the rental car company, right? Okay, so now here we get the plate. Because of the rental car company, they have the plate. So now they have the plate that way. And now here's what the GPS records show. I mean, incredible, right? From the car, because the rental agency had installed that. So now they have all these GPS points for the car. Because they also had the cell phones that were written on the rental agreement, they've got cell phone stuff that they're working on. Then they have all these pictures of Garcia and Rivera driving the Prius. And they show them rolling up to the ATM, and you see their faces. It is great. And from there, you can see how easy it was. But they don't stop. Like, that seems like that is more than we see in a lot of cases, including Idaho. Like, already, this is they've got these two dudes on lock with this right? But they don't stop there, right? They go ahead. It's like they built this entire fucking case before they made their first arrests. They connect it to Katie because of the phone calls, right? And that's the middle lady for anyone who's newer to the case. All these calls, right? They got all this. Goes on and on. Then the cellular telephone information, that goes on and on. I mean, look at how thorough this is, right? Evidence of purchases after the homicide, the finances, electronic surveillance. Now, this is the wiretaps. So now they're listening in on Donna and Charlie's phone calls. So funny, because it's like that started the whole thing with the phone calls, and then we have all those jail calls between the two of them. Anyway, then they have surveilling them at the restaurant, right? All this. They hear them talking about all this stuff. And they figure out the code words. Now, then you have the bump, which is the undercover agent and all of that. And we're going to get to watch all that as we go along. For some of you guys who haven't seen that yet, that was so epic, man. And they go, and after they send them the first note, then they record their phone calls and hear them talking about it. What should we do? Blah, blah, blah. And they go back and forth, and then they decide to make contact, right? And that's the whole thing. When Donna shows up to meet the undercover agent. Anyway, so yeah. So we'll watch all that, and we'll watch that testimony about the bump as well. Incredible. So, okay. So that was one thing I wanted to look at. Then, right? I know. I know. Yes, absolutely. And then the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look real quick here. You guys watching them pop up on the screen? Is that fun? Because we've talked a lot about these Donna emails. They're referenced in all the trials. We've heard that, we've talked a lot about them. I've already covered them, but they're so good. It's worth doing again. And especially for those of you guys who are new to the case too. But like, this is amazing, right? So this is from Donna to Wendi from May 3rd, 2013. So a year and like a couple months before the murder, right? I love this. Here's the message. Dear Wendi, okay, just saw this. Oh, sorry, hold on. I skipped to one of the best parts. The subject, info regarding his, in scare quotes, memorandum of law email. Like already there, it's mocking Dan, okay? Dear Wendi, hold on, let me do the voice better. Dear Wendi, okay, just saw this email this morning. Obviously, his 23-page rant was insufficient. So he is trying to push the court to deny hearing your petition. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I find this fucking hilarious because like Wendi knows you're not a lawyer. And because she says again, you know that there was a previous email prior to this one where she says, I'm not a lawyer, as if Wendi needed clarification. Like, what the fuck? Again, I'm not a lawyer and Wendi is. So okay. I don't know if to prevent any action, your attorney must respond or not. The attorney knows. Anyway, only you and she know that. However, Jibbers has made his divorce a full-time job to attempt to get what he's always gotten, his way. His job allows for lots of time for him to put into this project, in scare quotes. And you know as well as I do that all the research he's done on different case law to prove his point is his research, not his attorney's. No matter who did it, he is quoting 13 cases. It's not quoting, it's citing. She wouldn't know. She's not an attorney. Quoting 13 cases to show why the court should basically throw out your petition. Is Kristen answering this? So I guess Kristen was Wendi's attorney. And then in underline, does it require an answer to make sure that this is not seen by the court as ignoring his rights? I don't know. You need to find out. Obviously, they're doing that, Donna. And this is what we've heard this referenced in the trials. The most important part of your divorce is relocation, in bold. Donna made that bold. I sincerely hope your attorney understands that this is your non-negotiable. Now, remember, we heard, even just the other night, we heard Georgia say to Wendi, did you have a non-negotiable? What was your one non-negotiable? She uses those, and Wendi's like, I don't know. Blah, blah. And it's like, come on, Wendi. Lots of things are negotiable. That's the one thing that you can't let her think, okay, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. She needs to hear from you how serious you are about this and how it will benefit the children with a close-knit family support system. You mean a family support system of murderers, as well as your significantly better paying job. And the reason I find that funny is because, remember, we heard Wendi on the stand also say that it took her a while to find work when she moved. With hours much more flexible than your current job, so that you can spend significantly more time with the children, which requires teaching hours, office hours, court appearances, meetings with med school people, and multiple trips away from home. Those trips need to be coordinated with a very angry man who will not be cooperative with you in this regard. For example, this past weekend, you had your annual conference for fill in the blank. At the same time, his regular NYU crap was taking place. He didn't say, quote, I go to NYU every month and this is your annual meeting. I'll stay with the children and you go. Of course not. Danny thinks he's a very important person and as always, he and his needs come first. So without your parents as backup, one of you would have had to stay home with the children. Your attorney needs to understand that your mother worked full time in the family's dental practice until September when she felt she was needed by you for the well-being of the children to get them through a transitional time with people who love them and see them frequently and with whom they share great affection. So now she's trying to get to look at how much we've suffered. We as in her, and I guess now she's going to implicate Harvey, although Harvey's never complained about a damn thing. Your father has made numerous trips by plane for weekends and changing the patient's schedules around so that he can continue to spend significant time with the children. Well, no one forced him to fly, first of all. And now she's like, the patients haven't been complaining, but Donna's complaining on behalf of the patients. It's really incredible stuff, isn't it? Right? I know. It's amazing. It's really great. Yeah. Both the disappearance of your mother from the position of office manager and the disappearance of your father from the practice for a significant amount of time has caused a decrease in the practice income and the loss of some patients who feel that it's either not being run the same way as when my mother was there full time, or that my father is unable to see patients with problems and has referred them to other offices during his absences. I forgot about this. All right, you guys, we're going to see over the course of these emails, Donna switch back and forth between herself and being third person and like as if she's Wendi, and she doesn't preface it. She just switches. It's amazing. So now she's Wendi, right? Now she's Wendi, because here she says, so she starts out, let's just be clear. She starts out your father. Then she switches, and it's still your, then it switches my mother. Okay. Additionally, this loss of income affects my family because my older brother, so we're still Wendi again now, also a dentist, purchased the practice from my father in mid-July 2012. He has a monthly payment to make to my father based on the sale of the practice. It isn't fair to him to have decreasing monthly income statements from the practice due to my parents spending so much time here in Tallahassee. My brother is unmarried and is a wonderful uncle to Benjamin and Lincoln. If I am able to relocate to South Florida, they will have an incredibly warm and loving family as an integral part of their lives, not an occasional two. So I have to say, this adds another layer, because we already know that there's that thing that said Donna and Wendi are married. But now also, are Donna and Wendi the same person? Are they the same person and also married to each other? Incredible. Response. This is supposed to be a suggestion of Wendi's response to Donna, but Donna is both Wendi and Donna, and also married at the same time. Work that out in your heads, guys. Brief background. This is a no-fault divorce state, so his nonsense about no marital infidelity or abuse doesn't matter. However, hot temper and verbal abuse is what you need to emphasize that you suffered under his reign. Narcissistic personality disorder causes problems in a marriage, especially when one believes that because he attended Harvard undergrad and Harvard Law, he's clearly better and smarter than anyone else, including you. So now she's talking to Wendi again. Only an idiot like him would write that he should be the only one consulted for making decisions regarding the health, education, and religion of his children. Clearly, no one, including you, is as smart as he is in those regards. The money you moved into an account for you was exactly half, to the penny, of the joint account, which is marital assets. The furniture you took was the bare minimum, and we heard this come up in the trial, was the bare minimum, a bed for you to sleep on from the guest bedroom, one nightstand, and your dresser. All this is false, by the way, but I'm sure you guys figured. You took 2 chairs. I love this part. You took 2 chairs that you bought 5 years ago at a neighborhood furniture store's closeout sale for $50 each. I don't even know. You have receipts to show that all the new furniture you purchased to relocate to a safe place. You absolutely must emphasize that the only reason you left when he was out of town is because of the threat. You'll leave without your children, without a penny, and just the clothes on your back. It's super important for the judge to get the message that this guy is a big bully. I know she'll be able to read that when you submit copies of some of the emails he sent you. Well, no judge agreed with this, Donna. He feels if he's said something, that's it. Well, that's not it. Oh, God. He says you did this while he was on a short business trip. How about the many trips to conferences, etc. this man has taken? How much time away from his family? You have all those documented. Now you need to sit down and figure out how many days away that's been. How about adding to that all his 2-week trips to Israel, especially when you were at the end of your pregnancy? Sweet, caring, concerned husband. Wow. He talks about not knowing where the children were for the first 6 weeks. Let the court know that although he was never particularly interested in the children prior to the divorce, he was advised to keep a diary and make sure he shows interest now. You arranged to meet him the very next day with Alan and Lynn Grossman, mutual friends, and the children at a local yogurt shop so that he could see that the children were fine. You were in fear of his temper, and so you did not want to reveal your address. However, 4 days after the separation, you arranged to bring the children to his house as his parents were going to be in town, and they were there for the Rosh Hashanah holiday with them. The following week, on one of his uninvited treks to your office, after he threatened you with federal kidnapping charges, which of course now he recants, like everything he does, anything he can't believe he actually did, you gave him your address. That was 1 week after the separation, not 6 weeks. He says you took non-marital assets. What? Exclamation point, whatever that symbol's called, exclamation point. He says the children were 3 and 1 at the time that this took place. Ben was 3 and Lincoln was 23 months. He talks about you both being well-paid professors with stable jobs. Yours is not a tenure-track job. And with the economy as it is, there's no guarantee it will be there in the future. His trash talking to various faculty members about your mental instability. has also poisoned your work environment, making it extremely difficult for you to continue to function there in the same way as you previously did. Your job also pays you half of what his job pays. So on your own, it is not feasible to continue to live there in the home if you are currently renting. You've borrowed a considerable amount of money from your parents and must repay it for furniture, legal fees, moving expenses, etc. Now we're Wendi again. My parents, incredible. My parents have paid all grocery bills up to this point, for which I also have to reimburse them. Grocery bills? Really? You've got to be fucking kidding me. I do not want to dip into the so she's still Wendi. I do not want to dip into the money from our marital account, as that will have to go towards supporting my children and for their future. You guys. Yeah, tell me how I feel, mommy dearest, right? It is, yeah. Right? Yeah. It's not, yeah. Okay. According to Gibbers, the relocation must show the current arrangement for the children is deficient from the perspective of the children, and that relocation would advance their interests. This is something that we have reviewed numerous times in other papers, Wendi. Review all that we've put together, Again, Donna wants to be involved in this. It's just insane. In this regard, rather than have me repeat it. Obviously, the number one reason is significantly more income for you in a job that will give you significantly more time with the children. For children at this tender age, nothing is more important than spending quality time with them, which your current job does not permit. The financial freedom which will accompany this job will allow you to provide educational and outside activities and lessons for the boys that would not be affordable under your current salary. Number two, the ability for our children, okay, so we're Wendi again, to spend quality time with my parents and my mother, a retired elementary school teacher and soon to be convicted murderer, would be a huge bonus to our children's academic and social progress. In my parents' home, this is the part, guys, I've referenced this before, where it's clear that Donna expects them to move in with her. In my parents' home, each child currently has and would continue to have their own rooms with appropriate beds, furniture, books, and toys. I believe that she also says something again later that hammers that point home too. Now here's this bit about the religion. I don't really give a shit. It just, oh yeah, there's this part. She doesn't like the fact that there's teenage kids watching them when they're at like the, at church and stuff. And I guess there it's temple, they have like for the little ones, they go and they have people read them stories. Anyway, it's just, I hope your attorney is researching cases when relocation was granted and what the circumstances were. Also, all cases are different. Really, Donna? Really? No one knew that. Thank you for enlightening us. And because one case didn't allow it, doesn't mean that should prevent another case from receiving that benefit. Well, it depends on the facts of the case, Donna. Like you just said, thank you for enlightening us. All cases are different. Danny has said on numerous occasions, one I have on my phone as a saved message. What wonderful grandparents and in-laws we've been. She saved that shit for future reference. Holy mackerel. He knows that the children are very close to us and we'd always be there to take care of them, except for when you're in either Vietnam or prison. What's going to happen in June when he wants to go to 3 different conferences? Don't let him go, in all caps. If you do, you're enabling and facilitating your stay in Tallahassee. You'll be showing him that anytime he has a meeting he wants to go to, that's fine. You'll watch the boys. That's the whole point of relocation for you and the children. He can continue to attend all the meetings he wants to go to and then arrange for frequent and extended visitation with the boys. Maybe some of the money he spends on the trips can be used to visit the boys. This is insane. Another bribe to get him to allow relocation should be the offer of plane tickets. Since he does have a family, then she gets to allow this name calling. And isn't he supposed to pay some of your regular legal fees? This bastard has not paid 1 cent towards your bridge gap alimony. Why? Why only 2 months of a child support payment over an 8-month time frame? Loving, caring father that he is. I'm going to skip to this last paragraph. I'm too angry to write anymore. I'm going to shower, wash my hair, and get ready for you and the boys to come home. Dad said he'd look up any papers tonight or over the weekend that you may need. He's even got info on what Danny had in his IRA and 401k prior to marriage. Remember, Wendi was asked about these on the stand, right? And she was like, I don't know anything about any of it. Love you, Mom. So there's more where that came from, but we're going to, all of those emails we've covered on previous live streams, that's just a little taste. That's just a little taste, guys. So you can just see. For sure. And we're going to talk more about that too in these court filings with Robert. There you go. Let's get Donna shipped to a prison in Vietnam. Perfect. Yep. That's excellent. I totally, that's appropriate for sure. So speaking of Donna hating Tallahassee, It may not surprise any of you guys that Donna filed a motion to change venue. And usually we know why that is. And in this case, it hits differently. You know what I mean? Because of the hatred towards Tallahassee and that whole thing. That is just incredible. Like, how can anyone hate any place as much as they hate Tallahassee? You know? So there it is. So we're going to start with this. So this was just filed on January 13th. Weird. That's the same day that crazy shit went down with Henry Tennant in the Shanna Gardner case. I'm just going to close out some of these so that I don't have as many freaking tabs open. Okay. We're gonna see some crazy stuff here. Okay, so the defendant, blah, 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 blah. Okay, Miss Adelson was arrested on November 13th in the airport. And on November 15th, she was indicted for first-degree murder, conspiracy, and solicitation. The trial in this case is scheduled to begin with jury selection on June 3rd, 2025. Okay. However, on December 31st, 2024, the clerk of court failed to seal the transcript of the September 6, 2024 in-camera hearing on the defendant's motion in limine concerning the testimony of Mrs. Adelson's son. During that hearing, the court ruled that Dr. Rob Adelson's opinion was inadmissible. It is damaging enough. Now, what? Okay, let me back up. Why would that be? So character evidence. So it was probably character evidence, right? Character evidence is inadmissible if you are the state to bring it against the defendant, because he's going to testify for the state, right? If you're the defense, you can bring in character evidence to try to establish that the defendant has good character, but the state can't bring in evidence to try to be like they have a bad character. Okay. So that would be my guess as to why this would be inadmissible, because it was an opinion, and my guess it was to her character. Don't worry, we know he's still testifying. So it is damaging enough that his son is called to testify against his mother. Now you might be saying, isn't this a motion to change venue? Yeah, it is. I didn't write this, right? I mean, what the fuck? It is damaging enough that a son is called to testify against his mother. Now with this information about his inadmissible opinion out there, no one can unring that bell. As a result of the clerk's violation of the court's order, well, and also there's a period missing. Anyway, so it looks like what they're going to try to say is that because this got out, and the thing that they're saying, all that got out was that he was at a hearing and he was going to give an opinion and it was inadmissible. And that's tainting the jury pool. And like, for some reason, that's going to be worse in anyway, okay. Statement of facts. We know all this stuff. Here, oh, good. Here we get a timeline of the rest. That's good. The release of Wendy's interview. There we go. Proffer. This case has also been featured on subsequent television programs, including Dateline, multiple times. Rivera pleaded guilty. Since Rivera's plea, the case has been tried 3 times. Garcia was convicted during a joint trial with Magbanoa. That was the first trial where they hung on her, right? Magbanoa was retried and convicted in May of 2022. Shortly before Magbanoa's second trial, Charlie was arrested, and then he was convicted, right? So Donna is going to be the 4th trial. 1 week after Charlie's conviction, Mrs. Adelson was arrested at Miami International Airport. Incredible. You could hate Seattle for a long time. What did Seattle do to you? Okay. The media coverage throughout the investigation trials is overwhelming. The trials have all been televised by local That's not true. That's just not that. Sorry, that's factually not true, because I was just complaining recently about the first trial for Katie and Sigfredo Garcia. That trial has not been televised. Like, only the verdict was televised. Anyway, additionally, the case is the focus of numerous podcasts and blogs. The undersigned counsel is retaining an expert to compile. So they're pulling a Dr. Adelman, as it were. So I don't, she has a fundamental right. Yes, she does. She's not going to get a fucking change of venue. I guarantee you that. Okay. Miss Adelson cannot receive a fair trial by an impartial jury in Leon County. The pretrial publicity in this case has been so inflammatory, emotional, and pervasive that Leon County jury pool is now tainted by preconceptions, bias, and prejudice towards. And remember, we heard on the jail phone calls, Charlie complains a ton about how he feels like the reason he was found guilty is because the jury in Tallahassee hated him, and whatnot. Anyway, unlike many of the trials in which a change of venue was denied, the pretrial publicity in this case includes traditional news as well as blogs and podcasts produced by lawyers and laypersons. This is part of the reason why the court recently granted change of venue for Brian Cobert. Are you really comparing yourself here? Look, guys, this is part of the reason why the court recently granted a change of venue for Brian Cobert in Idaho. Yeah. What were the other reasons? The other reasons were because the courthouse could not possibly accommodate the number of people because they only had, what is it, like one court reporter or something? Like they didn't have the staff, they didn't have the space. There were, and I went over that actually kind of recently because it ticked me off in one of the recent court filings as well, that the state tried to pull that shit. And I was like, no. If you read judge's order, there's like 4 or 5 other reasons apart from pretrial publicity why basically it would have been impossible, even if it wasn't like in other words, even if you removed the pretrial publicity, when you look at just like the logistics, it would have been fucking impossible anyway. So, okay. And now they're going to go on about the pretrial publicity more with some case law. You know, the case law is all standard as far as that's concerned. So let's just see if there's anything else noteworthy. Have any of you guys watched the show called Frasier? Oh, there's Shepard. That's brought up in other ones. Okay, now here they're going to try to argue that voir dire is not going to be sufficient. I'm sure the court disagrees. I don't think this has been denied yet, but it'll be denied. Yeah. Okay. Next one. Oh, good. Yeah, I freaking love Frasier. Also, that's my only like reference to Seattle's from that show, right? And Chicago just makes me think of the song by what's his face. Hold on, let me think. Sufjan Stevens. I know. I was just thinking that Eddie the dog. Remember when he wore his little slicker and his raincoat? Oh my God, it was so freaking cute. So now next up, so that's her motion to change venue. So this was filed. I was going chronological order. This was 2-7. This is also 2-7. Let's do, which one should we do next? Okay, before we do, okay. You might see up at the top there's a motion to suppress. If anyone wanted to take a guess, what do you guys think the motion to suppress is for? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? There's a new Frasier? They like remake of the show? If that's the case, I didn't even know that was happening. So y'all let me know. What do you think? What do you think the motion to suppress is for? Okay, so now the motion to set bond and schedule an Arthur hearing. So now we're going to get into what her allegations are for her prison. This is great. This is some good stuff. The emails are a good guess. I'll give you guys a hint. This was filed. They were filed on the same day. Motion to set bond was filed on the same day as the motion to suppress. That's a pretty good fucking hint. I'm sure they're going to try to suppress the email. They're not going to be able to do it, but that's a good hint, I think, for you guys. But are you guys confirming there is a new Frasier? Like, why would they ever do that? You can't recreate perfect. You know what I mean? Okay. At first appearance, Mrs. Adelson was denied bond on count 1, and bond was set on $25,000 for counts 2 and 3. Counts 2 and 3 are the solicitation of conspiracy. On or about whatever. Okay, Sixth Amendment right to counsel. On January 8th, 2024, a motion for substitution of counsel was filed, which was granted. Now we're getting into the Dan Rashbaum shenanigans. That the attorney that became counsel for Mrs. Adelson. Okay. Let me actually read this. Okay. So remember, Dan Rashbaum was Donna's attorney. I don't know why, but he was already representing Donna or had represented her before any of this shit went down. So they go way back. Okay. And then because Charlie was before Donna, obviously, right? So then when he went to represent Charlie in the trial, he was still technically Donna's counsel as well. Now, of course, Donna hadn't been charged yet, but he was Donna's. And so we've talked a little bit about how that can affect a lot of things. One of them being trial strategy, right? Or even just if you encourage them to take a plea deal or whatever, right? All these things. So he was representing Donna at the same time he was representing Charlie, knowing that Donna might be an unindicted or could be next. I mean, he said, we know so from even listening to the jail calls, right? When he tells them to basically tells them to flee, which is insane. It's a whole problem. So I mean, everybody was shocked when it was like, how is she using the same attorney, right? So that's the first attorney. So then he had co-counsel, right? So then that's what's happening here. On January 8th, the motion for substitution of counsel was filed, which was granted. That attorney, or the attorney that became counsel for Ms. Adelson, was withdrawn. So what happened was, what they did was they went ahead and swapped it out with one of the other attorneys that was kind of working with him. But they thought initially that this other attorney, I forget his name, didn't have a conflict because he hadn't also represented other people in the family or whatever. Anyway, it was determined that the conflicts ran so deep here that they were like, the entire, like, we need you, no, you can't go with somebody who's part of the same firm or whatever, right? So she was given this new attorney who was supposed to be like, again, kind of already on the case, already privy to things. Then he was removed and she had to get new counsel again. That's why this trial has been delayed. And it was on the eve of trial. Yep, I remember this very well. From review of the records, it does not appear that the issue of bond was ever addressed by this new counsel. Due to the conflict of interest, Ms. Adelson's pretrial confinement was extended for approximately 9 months to wait a new trial date. And it's now slated to start with June 3rd. Okay, we don't need these background facts here. We know all this stuff. All right, 1 week. Now, this is funny, right? Because this is a motion for bond. All right, 1 week after Charlie's conviction, over 9 years after the homicide that took the life of Dan Markel, Mrs. Adelson was arrested at the Miami International Airport. Now, here's what she's indicted for. There's the bump that she attempted to vacation. You're kidding me. Look at how they're framing this. That she attempted to vacation in Vietnam. That's hilarious. A country that does not extradite more than 9 years after the homicide. No one has ever alleged that her decision on when to go to Vietnam was in relation to when the homicide happened. However, probably the fact that it was a week after Charlie was convicted, maybe that had something to do with it, counsel? All right, here we go. Incarceration issues. Here we go. This is great. This is really good. This is good. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Rashbaum is done everything wrong. Bad things. Many bad things. Okay, good question. Thank you, Twiz. Why can't an attorney tell you to leave the country if you haven't been charged yet? Because that is the point there, right, is like with Donna at the time was an unindicted co-conspirator, just like Wendi is right now, okay? I don't know that Harvey, technically, they're even calling him that. An unindicted co-conspirator. So what does that mean? It means that you could be indicted at any point in time. It means that potentially an arrest is in your future, maybe. So by encouraging a client, if you're an attorney, by encouraging your client, if your client is an unindicted co-conspirator, to flee to a non-extradition country, what that means is you're encouraging them to flee so that they can avoid facing charges. So thank you for this question, because let's do this. Let's pull this up. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to remember where specifically this is addressed. Well, this is relevant right here. Let's go over this first. These are all short. Client-lawyer relationship. Check it out, guys. A lawyer shall not represent a client if the representation involves a concurrent conflict of interest. A concurrent conflict of interest exists if 1, the representation of one client will be directly adverse to another client, or 2, there's a significant risk that the representation of one or more clients will be materially limited by the lawyer's responsibilities to another client, a former client, or a third person. Client-lawyer relationship. or that has to do with the business terms. They can't ask for a substantial gift, blah, blah. They can't get financial assistance. Okay, so we need to go to the next rule because that's not really what's relevant here. Next rule. Duties to former clients, you guys. Duties to former clients. Remember, attorney-client privilege goes with you to the fucking grave, guys. Or past the grave. So, oh, thank you for that, Morris. I just saw that in the chat. Thank you. Yeah. Alex Morris, that was the other attorney. Okay. So past death. So in other words, if you're an attorney and you got a client and that client dies, I don't care. Let's just say it's an attorney that can live for a million years. A million years after your client dies, that privileged information literally it stays with the attorney past death. It's like like marriage is funny, right? Marriage is like till death do us part. This is the duty an attorney has to their client is technically looking at if you compare the two, it's like stronger than marriage, right? It's like more so than marriage. Marriage is until death. Attorney-client privilege is past death. A lawyer who has formally represented a client in a matter shall not thereafter represent another person in the same or substantially related matter in which that person's interests are materially adverse to the interests of the former client, unless the former client gives informed consent confirmed in writing. Now, that was what happened with this case, is that Dan Rashbaum had represented to the state and to the court that he had consent from Charlie. And on the eve of Donna's trial, when they're like, oh, can you just show us, can you just turn over the written consent so we can, do our due diligence? And that's when he was like, I don't have it. And then they like conferred with Charlie. Charlie's appellate counsel did. And it's like, yeah, I don't consent. You didn't consent. So Dan Rashbaum giving him the benefit of the doubt would be saying that he seemed to think Charlie consented. That's giving him the benefit of the doubt. Charlie never consented. So whether it was a misunderstanding or did Dan Rashbaum misrepresent that intentionally, either way, bad. A lawyer shall not knowingly represent a person in the same or substantially related matter in which a firm. So remember that we've talked before about taint, right? For the whole firm. So there's a whole thing, right? This is where the Alex Morris comes in because Alex Morris was a separate attorney from the same firm. So a firm with which the lawyer formally was associated. That's even formally, never mind currently associated. This is crazy. So this is just more. I mean, it's just this shit is really important, right? With how they do this. General rule: conflicts of interest. Again, written notice is promptly given to any affected former client. That means if you the disqualified lawyer is timely screened. That's what happened to him. Okay. That's for government employees. That doesn't apply here. But we're going to get to the question that spurred this on, which is a great question. Let me go back to the table of contents, actually. The question about here, hold on. Check it out. I think it's towards the end. Okay. It's going to be in here. Check it out. I love how they have the Russian translation. What's really funny is like, there's not like other translations in other languages. It's just the Russian. Should we do it in Russian? Maybe we'll do that one. Do that after. Okay. It's going to say it point blank here. So this is saying if you're an attorney and you know of another attorney that has committed a violation of any of these rules, you're required to report them. Okay, this is getting into it here. Okay. It is professional misconduct for a lawyer to violate these rules, commit a criminal act, right? Engage in conduct involving dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation, engage in conduct that is prejudicial to the administration of justice, state or imply an ability to influence improperly a government agency, knowingly assist a judge or judicial officer in a conduct that is a violation of the rules. Okay, it's coming up. So there's like harassment. It's coming up. It's coming up. I think it's this next one. That's not. Let's see. Hold on. Hold on. Let me go back to the. So, okay, hold on. Just have to find it. So it's let's try advocate. Candor towards, I think it might be in here. Okay, hold on. Okay, they can't offer things that are knowingly false. A lawyer shall not unlawfully obstruct another party's access to evidence, alter or destroy documents, falsify evidence, counsel, or like, here we go. You can see where this is going. Alrighty, one of the rules, they cannot counsel or assist a witness to testify falsely. Knowingly disobey an obligation under the rules, make a frivolous discovery request. So, well, okay. It's in here somewhere. I will find it. But basically, what it is when you think about what are the exceptions to attorney-client privilege, right? One of the only exceptions is if you know that your client is going to commit a criminal act. Let me go back to table contents. Hold on, guys. Maybe it's here. I bet I don't think we clicked on this one. Okay, here we go. All right. A lawyer may reveal information relating to the representation of a client to the extent the lawyer believes necessary. 1, to prevent reasonably certain death or substantial bodily harm. So let's say you've got a client and they're like, yeah, I'm going to kill this dude. Like, you have to report that. 2, to prevent the client from committing a crime or fraud that is reasonably certain to result in substantial injury. 3, to prevent, mitigate, or rectify substantial injury to the financial interest or property of another person. To comply with other law or a court order. To establish a claim or defense on behalf of the lawyer in a controversy between the lawyer and client. To establish a defense to a criminal charge or a civil claim. Let's see. I think there might even be. Okay, yeah, no, we already went over this one. So there might be some more of these, but yeah, for anyone who wants to read more about this, you just Google, like, you can find the ABA, it's the Model Rules of Professional Conduct, and then you can read them all here. It doesn't make them an accessory to a crime. Because in other words, there's not criminal okay, if Dan Rashbaum had like secured the plane and bought the ticket and whatever, it might be different. But the advice that he gave, at least from what we heard Donna say on that hot mic, right, I don't think that it would arise to the level of being criminal. However, it will get, I'm certain it'll get him disbarred. If the other things don't first. It's a toss up as to what will happen first. But disbarment, I would say, is what's going to happen here for them. So yeah, they're going to have hearings about this and losing his law license. You know what I mean? So, right. So Twizza, you're right about this. It's only a problem that they got caught. You're right about this in the sense that if no one knew, they only know Dan said that because it was on the hot mic. And technically it would be attorney-client privilege to a certain extent. Now, okay, so let's just say, so Donna being his client, right? And they had this conversation. He said, you might get caught in the airport or stopped in the airport, but you may as well try or whatever, right? You might make it out in time. Okay, so Dan shouldn't have been saying that, but if Dan thought better of it, he should have reported himself because that's part of his duty, right? He didn't do that. So in other words, we would probably never know about that part of it were it not for Donna on the hot mic saying it, right? We would never know. Again, he should have reported himself, or if another attorney in the firm knew, they should have reported him. And they have a duty to, right? So, but again, because nobody did any of that, Donna self-snitched and also self-snitched on Dan as well there. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying here. If he said something like as a joke, like, too bad you didn't go to Vietnam, which isn't, I think that still crosses the line. I don't think you like that even if he said it as a joke. Yeah, no, I don't think so. But and I understand why you're asking. It's a good question, because that's, to me, that would almost come across as plausible deniability. Like, you want to be able to suggest to your client that they should flee and how to do it, but you don't want it to sound like you're telling them that. You know what I mean? I think it would be crossing a line anyway. But, according to the way Donna said it, it was not even like that at all, right? You guys heard it? Yeah. So, okay. So now, thank you for the great questions, though, guys. Okay. So here we go. Now we're into the incarceration issues. Medical issues of Mrs. Adelson. Mrs. Adelson is a 75-year-old female with typical medical issues of aging, exacerbated by the conditions of confinement, hearing problems that are compounded due to a medical issue that cannot be addressed by the medical personnel at the Leon County Detention Center, severe pain from a pre-existing medical condition in her back and legs, excruciating pain in her left shoulder, down her arm into her hand, as a result of an injury received during an attack by another inmate at the detention facility. Within the past few months, Mrs. Adelson has begun experiencing shortness of breath that has reached the level where others comment about hearing her struggle to breathe. Undersigned counsel has actually had difficulty hearing phone communications with Mrs. Adelson because her breathing is so labored that it interferes with phone reception. Well, we know how shitty the connection over those phones are, because, that's part of the reason why Donna ended up saying so much shit, is because she thought, because Charlie, the line would drop, but it was still open, but he wasn't there. Anyway, on a visit to the medical unit with other inmates on February 3rd, 2025, even the medical personnel asked what the loud breathing noise was, and the other inmates pointed at Mrs. Adelson. Oddly enough, when Mrs. Adelson was having a medical visit with the doctor at the detention center prior to February 3rd, the doctor refused to even listen to her chest because, quote, "that was not the reason you are here. I mean to get you another appointment." Well, you guys, how many times have y'all been to the doctor, and what does it say on the wall? Please, only one complaint per visit. What does that mean? It means when you show up at the doctor, you can't say, "oh, I've got a broken toe, and also I have allergies, and also I might need flu medicine," and like you get to do one thing. If you have a separate complaint, separate appointment, that's par for the course. On Saturday, February 1st, 2025, in the early morning hours, Mrs. Adelson was in the bathroom area. Okay, here we go. And accidentally bumped up against the washing machine, cutting herself on the right arm on a rusted metal bar on the machine. You guys, on the washing machine? You got to be kidding me. Heather has made the joke about her doing laundry at the jail. I'm sure other people have, but just recently there was one that I remember Heather saying about she could be the person doing all the laundry at the jail. You guys, literally, she got cut on the washing machine. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make this shit up. Wow. Cutting herself on the right arm on the rusted metal bar. Oh, did she need a tetanus shot? Oh my God, this is amazing. Wow. The nurse was in the pod, so Mrs. Adelson showed it to the nurse, who told her how bad it looked, but she had no Band-Aid. What? Well, it can't be that bad if a Band-Aid would have solved the problem, right? Jesus Christ. The nurse told her to wrap it in toilet paper so the bleeding would stop. I can't tell you guys how many, so I'm very accident prone, as a lot of you guys know. I can't tell you how many times I've cut myself and toilet paper is closer than a Band-Aid, and I use toilet paper until I can get to a Band-Aid. Like toilet paper, like I understand that they're trying to make this sound like this is terrible, but I mean, really, toilet paper will stop bleeding too. Anything to just put over it, right? For fuck's sake. And then to fill out a sick call form to request a Band-Aid and turn it in with the night nurse. Turning it in with the night nurse would mean she'd get a Band-Aid the following morning. Clearly, it's not that serious an injury, right? Unfortunately, the nurse had no sick call forms. This is insane. This is like having a hangnail and then I don't know. Finally, on Sunday morning, a sergeant sent a Band-Aid down for Mrs. Adelson. By that point, there would be a scab anyway, right? Fucking hell. Which Mrs. Adelson filled out, requesting each of her medical issues, including the cut, be addressed. The next day, she was taken to the medical unit. Her wound was cleaned, and she received a tetanus shot. Oh, fuck. I was right about the tetanus shot, guys. Oh my God, that's fucking hilarious. Any pain in the ass? She's Cinderella at the prison. You know what? The only thing that's missing here is her Googling luxury prisons for the rich, a la Corey Richards, right? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying we haven't seen that yet. Not saying it didn't happen. Wouldn't surprise me. Mrs. Adelson needs medical care that simply cannot be obtained at the detention facility. She needs an appointment with an ENT, an orthopedist, a physical therapist. Really? Come on. If she remains incarcerated pending trial, the defense will need to prepare motions to seek permission for her to receive care outside of Leon County and obtain a court order for each appointment. Well, why can't you just do that then? Wow. Obtaining proper medical care would result in a hardship for Leon County Detention Center and its staff. So one of the arguments, this might be their strongest argument, which is, well, we're worried about the taxpayer dollars for the Leon County Detention Center, and this would cost them more money. That's probably their strongest argument as far as making sure she gets her fucking Band-Aid. Oh, I'm sure the guards have access. Right. I know. Yeah. Yep. Possible. Attorney-client privilege. It is impossible. Ironic that they're even going to bring this fucking up. But remember, the people writing this are the new attorneys that are not conflicted, thank God. It is impossible for Miss Adelson to engage in attorney-client privilege communications via phone. So they're going to get to the part about her voice being so, what's the word? Labored or whatever the fuck. Yeah, it's difficult to hear them. There's a lot of background noise. Yeah, it's jail. Oh my God, look at this, you guys. Mrs. Adelson has had to get onto her bed and cover her head with her blanket so that she can hear counsel and counsel can hear her. So then it seems like her voice must be fine. It's just that people are noisy. We know it's jail. That's what happens. On one recent occasion, when Mrs. Adelson ended the phone call and pulled the covers off of her head, there was a guard standing over her listening to her phone call. If they could hear her, even though she was underneath all these blankets, then clearly her voice isn't that raspy. But also, what's interesting, this says covers plural or blankets plural. Like, how does she have multiple? Because we know, like, usually I don't think you get any, right? But you're lucky if you get one. How does she have multiples, though? I don't know that they realized that when they were writing this, by trying to make it seem like she's buried under all these blankets, they were inadvertently disclosing the fact that she must be getting special treatment or something. Because multiple blankets and what? No, I don't know how that's happening. Anyway, the guard could hear through all the blankets, apparently. Another inmate reported that the guard stood there listening for several minutes of the call. Once Miss Adelson ended the call, the guard proceeded in search of all of her items and discarded the headphones she uses to listen to the recorded materials. Lack of sleep. You've got to be kidding me. It's like, this is true for everybody. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Tampons must be free at schools. Wow. I don't think they had that when I was in school. I don't remember ever seeing that shit. This is a typical day for her. She wakens for breakfast at 3:30 a.m. Early bird gets the worm, they say. Or if you're Michael Scott from The Office, the early worm gets the worm. Lay awake in dark bed. Look at this. Dark bed. Oh, as in you could be going to sleep then, right? If they're trying to say, like, look, this whole thing says lack of sleep. You're laying down in a dark bed. Why aren't you going to sleep then? Again, lay awake in dark bed. In dark on bed. Why aren't you sleeping then? It looks like you could be sleeping pretty much all the time, apart from when they take you to your lunch and your breakfast and your dinner or whatever. Possibly leave bed and walk around in circles. Dinner served. Back on bunk. So it sounds like you should be, I don't get it. Okay. Physical abuse. In addition to the initial period of incarceration previously complained of to the court, where Mrs. Adelson was placed in a cell with a mattress on the floor, where she had to lay without clothing. So this is, y'all know, this is standard whenever you are brought in on like a first-degree murder charge. They do this to everybody. You know, the turtle suit, y'all know. This is not, it says physical abuse. Guys, wow. Like, it's one thing if other inmates are threatening or abusing, But put it that, then why include this, right? If in fact her issues that are happening that you're going to allege are significant enough, why would you include standard protocol that happens to everybody that is not physical abuse, and you include that in the physical abuse section? Oh my God. She's been physically abused and threatened with abuse throughout her incarceration. To understand the nature of some of these issues, it would be helpful for the court to be aware that the shower and the bathroom areas of the pods have no security cameras and are not. You know what's so funny though? You know, if there were security cameras there, people would complain because they're filming them showering. I can't with this, you guys. It's just, what the fuck? What the actual fuck? Yep. Oh, wait, why were there's tampons in the men's bathrooms? That's interesting. That's funny. I don't know why, but I mean, you know, that's really funny. Does anyone know why? This is just Donna, Donna, hey, are you asking for there to be cameras in the shower so they can watch you when you go and have a shower? Is that what you want? Sounds like that's what you're complaining about, is that there's no security cameras. So like, I would, if it were me, I'd be like, okay, look, I hear you. I see all your problems. I see it. There's no security cameras in the showers. Here's the solution. Instead of releasing you on bond, we'll just put cameras in your shower. Problem solved. One of the first acts of physical abuse by another inmate took place while she was showering and was of a sexual nature. I don't believe that. Sorry, I don't believe that at all. I just don't fucking believe that. Have you guys seen her lately? She thought she was alone in the area while she was showering when all of a sudden she felt another inmate run her hand up her entire spine. This is gross. Just above her buttocks to the area of her neck. Oh God, I'm gonna throw up. Oh my God. The inmate asked Mrs. Adelson if she liked it. And this is insane. And in response, Mrs. Adelson, very frightened, began to scream, which caused the aggressor inmate to leave the area. I need a Fievel break. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, where have you been, Heather? Have you seen this? I made this. There she is. Fievel. Wow. Most recently, Mrs. Adelson was standing in the area and facing her bunk bed. Another inmate slammed into her from behind, knocking Mrs. Adelson into the frame of the bed. This was very painful to Mrs. Adelson. Well, which was worse, that or her cut? And in case you missed it, Heather, she cut. I was just referencing you, how you had made the joke about how she could be doing all the laundry at the jail. Hold on, let me just scroll up, because this is how much I love you guys. Here, her wound. Look, she was in the bathroom area and accidentally bumped up against the washing machine, cutting herself on her right arm on a rusted metal bar on the washing machine. So literally, you cannot make this shit up. And then she had to get a tetanus shot, and then she was upset because they didn't give her a Band-Aid. That's the long story short of that one. Okay. Right. So she was facing her bunk bed. Someone slammed into her. This was very painful to Mrs. Adelson. When she turned around and asked why the woman had done that, why would you say that? The inmate replied, because you're a fucking killer. Accurate. The most severe and frightening incident to date, however, occurred several months ago and again was in the bathroom area of the pod. Solution, cameras. Donna's asking for cameras. We get it. Based on the records obtained, the incident occurred on or shortly before October 7th. Ms. Adelson was bent over brushing her teeth. Sounds like, why is she always fucking bent over? Like, what the fuck? With her right hand leaning on the sink with her left hand. What about her cut? Didn't her cut prevent her from doing this? Or had it healed without a Band-Aid? All of a sudden, she felt her left arm being jerked violently behind and up her back. Again, with this whole thing, like the spine touching from earlier. As she was yanked in that direction, a much larger inmate told her that she knew that Miss Adelson had got canteen, and from now on, she was going to get canteen for her too. When Miss Adelson tried to ask why she would do that, what type of question is that? She was told by the large inmate that she was going to do it. Miss Adelson was scared for her life and what more physical harm would come to her if she didn't comply. From that point forward, this aggressive inmate has instructed Miss Adelson what canteen packages she wanted ordered on a weekly basis. Afraid from her life, Mrs. Adelson began telling her husband, poor Harvey, to order the packages each week. She never told her husband why and just assumed Mrs. Adelson and he just assumed she wanted the food for herself. because the meals provided by the Leon County Detention Center are disgusting. I will say she's gained weight since she's been there. So there's that. Maybe you made that. I mean, it's fair that Harvey thought she was eating it, right? If it was, we're talking about food here. After Mrs. Adelson received, how do you spell your own client's last name wrong? After Mrs. Adelson, singular, receives her own canteen, purchased through the normal jail site, she also receives the 2 separate packages from the site ordered by her husband. She keeps the additional canteen items in the area of her bunk bed, and either the aggressive inmate comes to get the items herself or sends someone to get the items. This particular incident caused terrible pain to Ms. Adelson on the day of the incident and has continued to this day. She's requested medical treatment from the jail, but they are not helping, apparently. It's caused excruciating pain. All right, this is the part where they search her storage bin. They're allowed to do that. That's part of what happens when you're in jail. I know, right? Yeah, naked Donna. It's disgusting. Yeah. Starch. Okay, so solitary confinement. So this is where she gets her special cell. Mrs. Adelson has attempted to seek medical care for her pain, shortness of breath, and other health issues, and they haven't been denied or properly addressed. However, on Monday, February 3rd, 2025, so just recently, when she was finally taken to the medical unit and all of her issues, including the cut, that was from months ago. Fucking hell. When she was finally taken to the medical unit, oh yeah, I already read the part. The physician's assistant asked about the pain in her shoulder, how it started. That's when she disclosed how she'd been attacked by a fellow inmate. Thereafter, without the knowledge of Mrs. Adelson, the medical unit reported the attack to jail personnel. That seems like that's probably their protocol. Within a short period of time, 2 supervisors at the jail came into the annex and told Ms. Adelson to roll up her bed and get her bins because she was being removed from the pod. They explained that she'd done nothing wrong and put her into a room to question her about the attack. Yeah, because they want to keep people safe. Mrs. Adelson was very reluctant to disclose any information because she truly fears retaliation. Mrs. Adelson finally disclosed all the facts, including the extortion by the aggressor. Extortion as in, if you don't give me your canteen shit, then I'll beat you up more. Funny that they say extortion, though, in this case, with all the whole thing with the double extortion theory from Charlie's case. Funny that they're using that word. By the aggressor and how her husband unknowingly satisfied the demands by purchasing 2 extra packages. Why are they bringing Harvey into this? Fucking hell. Note. From October 7th, 2024 to the present, Mr. Adelson has spent $1,150 on a separate canteen. Poor Harvey. The jail supervisors advised Ms. Adelson that it was their responsibility to protect her. And the only way they can do that is put her in solitary confinement. Yup. Therefore, since Monday, February 3rd, she's been placed in a cell by herself. And now they're going through what solitary confinement means. We know. The toilet is in full view of the window on the door. Now, that's terrible. However, given the fact that she complained earlier about there's no cameras at the showers, I would imagine that Donna would be glad for this. Sounds like she's really an exhibitionist, right? Maybe, maybe if anything, maybe being in jail is she's coming into her own more, right? She's got some like female contact going on. She's like saying she's like complaining because there's not cameras at the shower. And now she's using the bathroom in full view of whoever's walking by. And maybe she's like living her best life this way, you know? I know. Yeah, for sure. So the only way they can adequately protect her is to put her in solitary confinement. And there they use the word extorted again. Incredible. No risk of harm to the community. Well, okay. I would agree that she's not going to like physically harm anybody. However, I would say that her gaslighting, I mean, like mental and emotional harm. Yeah, I think that's she would continue on with that. Mrs. Adelson is a 35-year-old woman with physical impediments, with no prior criminal history and no disciplinary issues during her entire incarceration. This is the funniest part of all of it, though, not a flight risk. How do you do this as a defense attorney? How do you make this argument? How? Just how? Literally. In this same document, when they go through the background facts, it included she was arrested at the freaking airport, attempting to go to Vietnam. They called it a vacation. However, we all know it was a one-way ticket to a non-extradition country. Ms. Adelson has no passport and has been placed on a no-flight list and thus cannot schedule a flight bound for any domestic or foreign destination. Her husband is 80 years old and would relocate to live with her in Tallahassee, Florida. And again, how funny is this, right? Like with how much they hate Tallahassee, and they're saying if you let her out on bond, here's what they're saying. They're saying she wants to be let out on bond so badly she would even live in Tallahassee. That's how badly she wants to get out on bond. She would even live in Tallahassee, which, I mean, by Donna's own, like, in Donna's mind, it might be worse than jail. Like, that is the same. Like, that's jail, right? I mean, I guess she's in jail in Tallahassee, so it's like lose-lose. But like Donna's version of hell is Tallahassee. So legal argument. We don't need to read any of that. It's going to be flatly denied. I mean, well, the motion for a hearing is I think has already, well, yeah, it's already been granted. But yeah, we know she's not. Okay. So remember the question I was asking earlier, guys, right? The motion to suppress that was filed on the same day. What do we think that's going to be about? What do we think? Let's see if you guys can guess before I go over to the document. Who wasn't charged yet? Hold on. Who wasn't charged yet? Are you talking about Donna? I'm not sure what you're referencing there. Yeah. I mean, the other thing too, I will add, is the other thing that's significant is with Dan Rashbaum's statement to Donna, you might get out in time. Right there, I should just circle back to that when we talked about the unindicted co-conspirators. Him saying you might get out in time, honestly, that implies that he knew that this was imminent, which is possible, right? Like in other words, even if she wasn't fleeing, this was imminent anyway, right? Because like, just think about that, right? You might get out in time or they might arrest you at the airport. That means he thought that her arrest was coming on or before that day, which was a week after Charlie's conviction. So that right there is like, they're coming for you. They're going to arrest you, right? That shows his knowledge, but that means she had the knowledge as well. What a mess. Okay, you were referencing when she was going to Vietnam. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. If you flee, I mean, had it been successful, that's it. I mean, it's a non-extradition country. Now, having said that, well, things change, right? And, at some point in the future, if she was still alive and if they were in Vietnam and Vietnam was like, hey, we'll extradite, like, then she could come back and face charges at that point. So did any of you guys miss my good news earlier that I told during the Shanna Gardner hearing or live stream? Because I do have some news while you guys are trying to guess what the motion to suppress is going to be as part of our game. Guess the motion to suppress game. It's a new hit. All the kids are doing it. Filed on the same day as the document we just read. Okay, so you guys know how I love STS, right? And like their whole theme is best guests, like capital B, capital G. Usually attorneys and whatnot. So I'm going to be a best guest on the show, which is wild to say. And I got the confirmation today, and it's going to be me and like 2 other attorneys. I don't know who yet. And it might even become like kind of a regular thing, but at the very least, it looks like either one day next week. Okay, either one day next week and maybe a day the following week, or maybe even 2 days next week. It just kind of depends on if something else happens with Frank's. But basically, next week, the first one's going to be getting everybody up to speed because they haven't covered Idaho 4 in a while. And then I think that when basically the impression I got is that like they want me to come on to get everyone up to speed, but then when there's like subsequent things happening, probably can't have me back on, like as like maybe like a regular thing. So yeah, pretty insane, right? I know, Joel. Yeah, I mean, like it blows my mind. Huh. So yeah. Well, Twiz has a standing invite to come on, especially pertaining to a standing invitation, but I know especially, would be interesting to him probably with the maps and whatnot. And so, yeah. And like what I love about STS is long form interviews, right? Like I told the story earlier, but like what got my attention, because I had seen the thumbnail with the channel and I didn't know, because of the name, I didn't know what it was about, right? And for anyone who doesn't know, the reason it's called Surviving the Survivor is because the way that the channel started, it was Joel and his mom is a Holocaust survivor, okay? Carm. And so that's why the channel is called Surviving the Survivor, because Carm survived the Holocaust. But if you don't, for people like me, if you don't know that, right, you wouldn't know that what the channel is related to, right? You would think it's about the show Survivor or whatever, right? Or like, outdoor survival skill or something, right? So when I finally figured out what the fuck the show was about was because it was before the Murdoch trial, and I saw Eric Bland's face on the thumbnail, and instead of reading the name, I saw the face, and I was like, holy shit, Eric Bland for like 2.5 hours? What? And not just him, but all the other attorneys on these cases that either don't go on, like, again, I said this earlier too, but Dan Rashbaum's only given one interview, and it was to STS. It was before all the other fuckery went on with the conflict. But people that don't give interviews anywhere will give them to STS. People that do give interviews everywhere else for 5 seconds, like on mainstream media or court TV, long crime, no. And, I understand, right? They've got, when they look at the schedule, it's like they've got this time slot and they have to meet those metrics, and each person can say 2 words, right? And so with STS, they can come on and they can actually fully get into stuff. And then, of course, they can talk to each other, people on the show. And then, of course, if you're in the chat, you can ask them questions and they'll directly respond. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing, and they have the ability to get these guests on that no one else can get. So I love it because, in it, is for LawTube, where it's like, documents, hearings, trials, while they do cover, they've started covering some trials because, their first one was Charlie's trial because Joel was there. But the whole thing, like mainly what they do, right? They do what they set out to do from the get-go, because Joel having his background as a anchor, like a news anchor and a reporter, he likes to ask people questions, right? So he gets the best guests and he has connections because of that background. And then the best guests come on the show. And, and so it's a really great way when you want to hear other people's perspectives on cases where, I love long form, right? It's like, isn't it, how frustrating is it? It's like blue balls, right? When they've got somebody on one of those, court TV or whatever, right? And it's like they're finally starting to answer the question and get to something exciting, and then it's like, oh, we're out of time, and you're like, why do I torture myself by watching this, right? Like, I don't even get the full answer, and even the attorney feels like they've been given blue balls. You know what I mean? And like, so what's great about STS is like they'll just keep going. I mean, some of their streams are really, really long. It just sort of depends, but they'll tell funny stories. It's awesome. It's very, you get to actually talk to these people, like, and hear from them like they're real people and not just like a face on the thing, if that makes sense. So Right. Joel, and yeah, Joel will be the first one to say he doesn't know anything about the law. Right. But he brings the others on. And see, the thing is like, what's great about it is like, he's really good at asking questions and directing the conversation. And sometimes if there's like something that's like, controversial or whatever, he has a good way of handling that. So he's like the mediator, right? And so that's why he brings on, like, usually it's 3 other people, but 2 or 3, but usually 3 other people that do know the things, right? And then he is like the mediator, if you will, like asking the different people different questions, and he's the facilitator of good conversation. That's the way to put it. He's a facilitator of good conversation that goes way more in depth than you'll see anywhere else. So it'll be exciting. I'll get to talk. I don't know who they're going to have on for the attorneys, but I'll be talking to them and they'll be talking to me. And, and I told them, by the way, I said, if you guys want, you can use the maps. You can use any of the shit that I've made. I'm like, if you want to use the map, like they might use the master list. They might use the maps, all the shit that I've made. Right. I said, I've got these presentations about the cell phone stuff. Like, yeah, anything they want to use. I've been a friend of the show, as they call it, right, forever. And you guys have even heard me talk about how I volunteered for them and stuff. And I remember Twiz asking me if I work for them or worked for them. And I was like, no. It's a family. It's a team effort. It's a group effort. Right. So it's like, this is to say it's an honor is just it's such a vast understatement, because like, if I could be on any show, this would, calling it a show. Right. But like, it never occurred to me. It would have even occurred to me, not even at all. But, it's, yeah. I mean, and it sucks. I don't have time to watch things as much now that I'm, like when I first discovered the channel, it was before I had my own channel. You know what I mean? And when you live stream, then you don't have as much time to watch other live streams, but anyway, in fact, the whole thing where y'all have we have the custom commands for people, the way I got that idea was from STS. And the first custom command that they had was for me, and it was squirrel. And that was a long ass time ago. It was ! Squirrel. And so whenever I would show up, I would do squirrel and other people would do it. Right. And the way it started is because when I would show up in the chat, everyone would just flood the chat with squirrel emojis everywhere. That's what they would do. So then, because I was also talking about how much I love Nightbot, that's how they, Space Coast had the idea, Shop Spacey had the idea to make it a command where now Nightbot can do it too. So you can do the command and then it does squirrels. And that's how and then from there, they added a couple other custom commands, but that's how it started. And that's how I got the idea, because I loved it. I was like, this is so fun. I love celebrating, the fact that you can celebrate people that are there. And, anyway, so, I mean, they would never ask me to, Heather, I'm sure that's a joke. I'm just sure that's a joke. Yeah, STS was the first on the Adelsons for sure. Yeah, I don't know Gray. I don't think you guys have talked. I don't know. You guys have talked about him before, but I don't really know who he is. Yeah, and so yeah, so that's what's going on. That's the big news. Did anybody guess though yet what this motion to suppress is for? The other thing I love about STS is like, there's such a family feeling there. Like, how I was saying, like, their slogan is best guess, but then at some point we added on like better community. Because the community there is really cool. And, in fact, a lot of the people that you guys see in the chat are from STS as well. The STS community. And sometimes like, the COE and Spacey will pop in here too. The COE is Joel's wife, and the COE is chief of everything. It's just brilliant. But it really does have like a really genuine, there's a lot of, what it is, how to say it. There's a lot of heart. There's a lot of heart. from Joel telling his funny stories, and, you know, they tell the funny stories about their kids, and, you know, they get on the show and it's like, here's all these disasters that happen, trying to get the show. It's just very real. It's very genuine. It's very real. There's a lot of heart. There's a lot of heart among Joel and his family, and they're awesome. And there's a lot of heart in the community, and it's, you know, it's just, it's very cool. It's very cool. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I don't think Court TV knows who I am. So what day next week? I don't know yet. I told the person who would call me to coordinate this, I'm not going to say their name, but I told them that probably Tuesday would be the best day for me. But again, I think they might want me to come on twice, but I will definitely keep you guys posted. Y'all will hear. I'll post about it. I'm not going to, you know, because that's going to be amazing. I don't even know. I can't wrap my head around it still. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't even know. But yeah, I mean, you know, as they know, right? As they know, like as y'all know, right? Covering this entire fucking thing with BK, but also I think that, you know, the feedback that I tend to get, right, from you guys and other people, sometimes it's people in the comments if they're not there live, but, you know, the feedback that I tend to get is that they appreciate that I stick to the facts, and that, you know, to the vast majority of people, I think they say I come across as unbiased. You know, that's really important to me, right? So I would hope that that's the case. Which, if you stick to the facts, by definition, there shouldn't be any bias anyway, right? If you stick to the facts. So anywho, thank you so much. Thanks for the support, guys. So yeah. And by the way, I'm sure you all know there were two more subpoenas. I'm sure you guys have seen it, that posted on the summary page. It's so weird because there's so many documents that still haven't loaded on the actual docket where you can open them. And like everything that loaded recently is like bullshit, right? Where it's just like one sentence, this is sealed, this is ordered. Like, it's like, dude, but it's odd to me because the order to, unseal that protective order, that was from January 31st, I believe, and we still haven't seen that. So I don't know. So yeah, it'll be awesome. And we'll probably get some new scroll friends, you know. I mean, for people that want to, you know, y'all know how I feel about the drama and the toxicity and whatnot, and it's for the birds. It's not for the squirrels. And so people who can appreciate the perspective that I have, at least, and try to have, you know, then they might be happy. And if nothing else, you know, y'all know how I hate misinformation, right? So, you know, I'm happy to just report, you know, just to go through everything, you know, and try to create little visuals like the maps, you know, with the towers on them and whatnot that don't exist elsewhere that I've seen. You know, anywho. So, oh, and right. And Wendy's the exception. You know, you guys know. I even said it. Wendi is the exception. I actually said that today with the person I was speaking with from STS. I even said that today. I even said there's one exception, and that's Wendi. I said, literally, I said, I don't ever, you know what it is we were talking about how people get really emotional with trials, right? Like pre-trial, right? It makes sense when you're waiting for a verdict, because at that point you've heard all the evidence, right? But how people get really emotional picking sides, right? Pre-trial or during trial, but before the end of trial, for example, right? And and I literally said, I was like, yeah, I was like, I don't, there's no emotion at all. Like, I don't know why there would be emotion. I literally said, there's one exception, and that's Wendi. I said it's the only time like cursing at her and calling her names. I'm like, literally, only Wendy can get that reaction from me. Otherwise, yeah. So it's just funny. Okay, well, nobody, I don't know that y'all have guessed, but we'll just go ahead and say that, yeah, Wendy is, yeah. I mean, right? So here's what it is. Motion to suppress. Guess what she wants to suppress? She wants to suppress her fucking arrest video at the fucking airport. Well, thank you, Miss Q. We love you. Here's the facts, Anna. Or sorry, sorry. Let me correct that. It's the recording, the hot mic recording. That's what she wants to suppress. It's comical. It's comical, honestly, guys. One piece of evidence the state intends to use against Ms. Adelson is a recording made after a jail call. Ended on November 7th, 2023. The call was originally made by Ms. Adelson's son, Charlie, to Ms. Adelson while he was incarcerated. Although the call was dropped on the jail side of the call, about 8 minutes into the call, the open line continued to be recorded, and that's in scare quotes. By this motion, she requests the court suppress it. Look at this. They're trying to say it was a warrantless search. This is incredible. Terminated. It wasn't terminated. He just got disconnected because the connection sucks. Okay. Oh boy. Statement of relevant facts. Charlie was convicted on November 6th, 2023. He'd been held up bond. On November 7th, he called his mother. Well, he also called her on the 6th. First thing he did was he called his mom. But he called her on the 7th and the 8th and the 9th and every day until she was arrested. Called his mother from the jail. At the beginning of the call, an automated voice notifies the recipient of the call that it's recorded, right? At 8 minutes and 5 seconds into the call, Miss Adelson realizes that Charlie's no longer on the phone. At that point, she reasonably believed the call had ended and just puts the phone down. She didn't hang up. She put the phone down, and it was definitely on speakerphone. There's no way around that. At the time of the call, she was present in her home with her husband, attorney Susan Brotman. I don't know who that is. Not her attorney. These just must be friends or something. After Charles' end of call, actually, you know who they are? I'm remembering. So that in that call, she's talking about getting their affairs in order because they're leaving the country. I bet these people are like maybe probate. So, for example, figuring out how the money is going to be distributed and whatnot in order to pay for, I don't know, Charlie's commissary or something. I bet that's what these people were doing. After Charles's end of the call dropped, continued speaking with Miss Brotman, Miss Chagrin, and her husband. At the time of this call, no law enforcement agency had obtained a wiretap. Of course they hadn't. In fact, we even hear her say, my phone's not being recorded. Incredible. Okay, are you going to sleep? Oh, by the way, how did your dip go for the Super Bowl day? I meant to ask. Follow up on the dip there. What are you referencing here, Miss Q, with the redactions? It goes out saying, if you're talking about the hearing for Donna, we're going to watch that. So don't worry. It goes out saying that inmates have a diminished expectation of privacy, and aside from calls with attorneys, their calls can be recorded. Same is true for anyone who accepts the call from an inmate, blah, blah. They're defining oral communication, wire communication. In other words, there must be both a subjective reasonable expectation of privacy as well as an objective reasonable expectation of privacy that society is ready to recognize. Does that sound familiar? It is also well established under Florida law that an individual loses that reasonable expectation of privacy when they commit criminal or otherwise unlawful acts. So, for example, that's why when you're incarcerated, your calls are recorded. To determine whether the person had a reasonable expectation of privacy, which society is ready to recognize, courts look at the circumstances of the communication. For example, conversations which take place in public where a driver is speaking to people outside of his vehicles is not an oral communication under the statute because the driver could not have had a subjective expectation of privacy. However, communications which take place in one's home are protected. Although Ms. Adelson consented to the telephone call being recorded when she received the call from her son, what was the scope of her consent? The United States Supreme Court has held that the standard for measuring the scope of a suspect's consent under the Fourth Amendment is that of objective reasonableness. This sounds like so many other things, right? What would the typical reasonable person have understood? Yeah, you should understand. How many times do they repeat that message? Your call is being recorded. You got to be kidding, right? Is this a joke? Scope of consent must also be considered in light of the consenting person's expectation of privacy. Where communication is unlawfully intercepted, Irrelevant here. This was not unlawfully intercepted, so completely irrelevant. Ms. Adelson's conversation in her home. So now they're going to say they are saying it was protected. No. The question here is whether the consent of the recipient of the call gives for, wait, hold on. The question here is whether the consent the recipient of the call gives for the call to be recorded terminates when the inmate's side of the call ends. Huh? That's worded weirdly. Typically, when two people are on the phone or having a conversation where at least one of the parties is using a cellular phone and one end of the call drops, the call terminates. Well, I'm trying to remember what that's like when that happens. I think what happened, yeah, when the call drops, the call does terminate. That's true. But it's like you don't have an option to keep it open, right? Like even if you were going to try to hang up, it's too late. Like it's just terminated, right? You don't have to hang up. It ends. That's different here, clearly, because she was still on the phone. And that's why it was different than the call just dropping. It's like it's just shitty, whatever the fuck is going on with their jail phones. But it's not the same as like a call dropping, like, can you hear me now? Like in the commercials. Certainly, one can consent to their communication being intercepted by accepting a call from an inmate. However, that consent must necessarily be limited to consent to record the wire communication between the inmate caller and the one who consents to the wire communication being recorded. Once the inmate side of the call ceases to function, that the inmate is no longer on the call. This is crazy that they're saying this. Like they're trying, wow. And if the recipient of the call believes the call is over, the recipient's consent for the call to be recorded must also terminate. No. Wow, y'all, pretty amazing. Another great point, thanks, Twiz. If you're on speakerphone, you have the expectation of privacy. Another great point. The thing here, as they said, right, in their weirdly weirded question initially there, like, if she wanted to terminate the call, she could have hung up, and she didn't. Therefore, a conversation that she has in her own home, right? Like normally, if she hung up and then she had a conversation in her home, like that's yeah, right? But she didn't hang up. And one thing I will say, even if Charlie's not there, hello, Charlie, are you there? He's not there. You know what it is, right? You look at your phone, right? It's on speakerphone. It's sitting there on the table. Again, I picture this as being the kitchen counter. You see the timer still going. And remember, she has to pay by the minute too, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that it pops up on there that also tells you how much you're paying as the clock ticks. So it strains credulity that even in that situation, you would think the call had ended because you would see that, you know, even if there's not a thing about money, right? Let's just take a regular phone call. You see, when you look at it, right? What is it? It has the seconds going by, right? You would see that, right? You would see it's got the seconds, the time is going, right? And again, in this case, I wouldn't be surprised if it's also including dollar amounts too. As a result, the continued interception of the communication after Charles Adelson dropped off the call was unlawful. Yeah. Wow. It's a lot. Oh, thank you. You were answering my question. You were talking about Idaho. Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So now we are going to watch her hearing. So let me unshare, reshare. So this was just from like yes, I think February 11th. So just yesterday, day before, something like that. There's been a lot of hearings. I think it was February 11th. So, okay. And it's a short, it's a long hearing. So she's going to appear over Zoom. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, you're going to see what she looks like now.
It's only, it's just, nobody's on it.
Go ahead.
That's not my client, Judge. Todd Pete, my case 2022 CF
That's not my cod. Oh boy.
336. We actually went to FSU Stroger Library yesterday, Judge. They're working on getting us some more documentation. We have filed a Brady demand. I think we have it set for a hearing,
Yes.
I believe, with your court. So I would ask that we would set this for that same day of that hearing.
Remember how we were commenting on Katie McBanois' purple thing? And remember how I was commenting on the pocket? She's got the same uniformy thing. The purple nurses, it looks like a nurse's, what do you call it? Scrubs or whatever, but it has a pocket. She's got that thing. I mean, of course, right? It makes sense. It's a nice color though, you know, versus like the orange.
Judge.
What's that name again?
PEAK.
That'll be 226.
The phone call only mattered because they knew they needed to arrest her before she got on that plane. But remember, we've been through her PCA. Again, they were already going to arrest her with that. Like her attempting to flee did not have any bearing on probable cause to arrest her because they were already going to do it. They already had, well, above and beyond, right? Enough for probable cause. Again, the PCs are just so fucking thorough. It really matters more as it pertains to the bond. However, it can be used in trial to show consciousness of guilt, but that's for a jury. As far as establishing probable cause for arrest, it has no bearing on that. Yeah, I figured you were just joking, but I wanted to go ahead and just say that because you never know when people are listening and they, you know, I try to answer people's questions before they have them, right? And sort of imagine what questions people would have. Yeah, if they didn't hear the call and she got out, she would have been free unless and until Vietnam agrees to extradite, which might not happen in her lifetime. If she, just like if you go to Cuba or Russia or you know, I don't think there's that many non-extradition countries, and they chose Vietnam, right? If it's a non-extradition country, you know, they can change. Countries can change their agreements to where, because that happened recently with one. I forget which one it was, where they agreed to extradite and they'd been a non-extradition country for a long time. I forget which country that was. But so like again, Vietnam in the future, if they decided, yeah, okay, fine, we'll extradite, then they could ship her back over. But barring that, she would have been out scot-free, but she could never return to the US. She would have a warrant. There would be an open warrant out for her arrest, is what would happen. And not only that, if she ever left Vietnam, like she could never leave Vietnam. She doesn't even have to just come back to the US. There'd be a warrant out for her arrest, and that would go through the Interpol as well. So let's just say she left Vietnam and went to, I don't know, South Korea. They would know, and they would bring her back to the US because they would extradite. So that's how it works. So you can't cross, she would never be able to leave Vietnam. Yeah. This is why I said it strains credulity that she was like, what did they say? Another inmate was like essaying her or whatever, or like touched her spine in a sexual manner. Oh yeah, I don't believe that for a fucking second.
Be heard at the same time as the motion.
That'd be fine, Judge.
It's 226, Judge.
Yes, motion hearings on 226.
The next one is James Rackley, 2024 CF 2477. We are negotiating with the prosecutor, Mr. Hughes, about a resolution. If we could have 30 days,
Mr. Fuchs, anything to add?
No, Your Honor, he's asking me to be more reasonable, and I asked for reasonable reasons to be more reasonable.
and we're working on more reasons, making more reasons. Time saving for you, Your Honor.
325 at 2:30.
I think that's as it pertains to the case.
Dominic Rondinelli, 2024 CF 2769.
Okay.
We're trying to get more reasonable again with Mr. Fuchs.
So these are other attorneys talking. You know, this is a calendar, so they're talking about other cases. It's funny. They're making him laugh. I love, Judge Everett. So, but Don is just sitting there on camera, which is pretty fucking funny. So we'll go.
325. The last one, Judge, I'm covering for Mr. State by prosecutor.
That's fine, Judge. We're just starting discovery right now. And Judge,
She just has to sit there on camera while they do this. This is so funny.
4:15 at 2:30.
Okay. All right. This
Mute.
so remember
on your-
the whole thing about how they said, "Oh, we can't hear her and her voice is so quiet." So now I'm going to send you a prompt to unmute on your end.
Side.
Okay. Donna's turn. Donna, you're on mute.
Did you get the prompt?
Oh my God, this is fucking hilarious. You guys.
I see your lips moving, but we cannot hear you.
Amazing.
One moment. I'll send it again.
Oh my God. I love this. How did she get a hair tie? She's got hair tie. She's got multiple blankets. Like what? Now she looks distressed. Oh, how funny. Are you a cat? Have you guys all seen that video, the lawyer cat thing? That was fucking funny. COVID. Lawyers and technology don't mix. Notorious for that. Oh my God. How long is she going to keep talking on mute? Amazing. Judge Everett.
Yes, he needs to get subbed.
Okay.
Oh,
All
Can you
right.
hear us, Your Honor?
I can hear you
I heard
clearly.
it's fine.
Let's go ahead and address Donna Adelson, 2023 CF 3226.
There she is, Mrs. Adelson. You know, like the Miss America stupid song.
Zelman,
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Joshua Zelman on behalf of Ms. Adelson.
Her new attorney.
Jackie Fulford on behalf of Ms. Adelson.
There are a couple of things that we wanted to address initially. The state had previously perpetuated the deposition testimony of Dr. Clark, the former medical examiner. That was done by prior defense counsel. We've reviewed the material. There was
What? What? The medical examiner? Huh? What? Is there any dispute over cause of death here? What?
one portion at the end that we had requested that they edit out, but we would stipulate that would be appropriate to present to the jury during the trial in our case. We've spoken with Ms. Adelson about that as well. And even though we were not counsel at that, defense counsel didn't ask any questions, and that would have been our strategy as well.
very well. You may continue.
We are also stipulating to the foundation of the extraction of Wendi Adelson's cell phone that was conducted by Marsha Rodriguez, who will be out of the country at the time of the trial, so that they don't need to present her testimony in order to introduce the contents through other witnesses. We did want to inquire with Your Honor about the status of the in-camera examination of prior investigator.
With that,
This is due to they're going to mention, guys, they're going to talk about the attorney-client fuckery with Dan Rashbaum. So that's what when they talk about the investigator. Again, this is how far does the poison go, right? Because the investigator, if the investigator was hired and brought on, a lot of times these defense attorney, like these private, law offices, they have investigators that work for the firm, right? Remember what I said about the taint. The taint poisons the whole firm. So if this investigator was brought on and is an employee of and works with the firm, like there could be major problems.
Lynn, has a date already been set for the?
I don't think so. Did we set, we didn't set a date yet.
And I provided his cell phone number.
This would just be me meeting with him. It's not a
Okay,
motion.
yeah, no,
Okay.
I'll follow up on that.
We do have some issues with regard to discovery and prior case management. Your Honor had indicated that based on the conflict that existed in prior counsel, you would understand if we were going to redepose some of the witnesses that had previously been deposed by prior counsel. There are three
Well,
such.
hold on. I believe I said if you needed to raise the issue, you certainly could, but that
We'd like to
do
raise
not
the issue.
accept that as a blank permission to
We
redepose.
didn't, Judge. We didn't.
Okay, go ahead.
So we've been working to schedule depositions with the state, and for this morning, for the first time, we learned that they do object to us redeposing 3 of the state's witnesses. One would be Chris Corbett, the second would be Special Agent Patrick Sanford, and the third, Robert Adelson. Mr. Adelson is the son of Mrs. Adelson, of course. His deposition would not be lengthy, but we do need to redepose him.
So the reason
the
being,
depth.
what's this about? When Rob Adelson was deposed, that was back before all this. Remember, the shit hit the fan with the attorney-client fuckery, with the or conflict of interest fuckery, right? On the eve of Donna's trial. So when Rob Adelson was initially deposed, he was deposed prior to her trial because he was going to be a witness. So in other words, whenever they did the deposition, who was asking, and he's a witness for the state, right? Who was questioning him for the defense? Well, none other than Dan Rashbaum, right? Who's like, so the reason they're saying redepose, right, would be because when it comes to the conflict of interest, they cannot be confident that Dan Rashbaum had his attorney's best interest at heart. And that is putting it nicely. In fact, one could say he would go out of his way to, again, I made a joke before, but I think it's probably true. Like, was his goal to then, eventually represent Wendi as well, right? Maybe, probably. It's insane. So in other words, in terms of them talking about how they want to redepose, I think of all of the names they mentioned, I think the one for Robert makes the most sense, again, because guess what? He's another Adelson. And I think it would be hard to fathom that the right questions would have been asked in that deposition. So
Of the conflict between Mr. Rashbaum representing Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson is probably much deeper than the court understands. And
I
to the
believe it.
extent you'd like to know further why we would like to depose these witnesses and that particular conflict.
guys, what they're saying is this is worse than you know, which is hard to imagine, right? It's hard to imagine.
Of the conflict between Mr. Rashbaum representing Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson is
Crazy.
probably much deeper than the court understands. And to the extent you'd like to know further why we would like to depose these witnesses and that particular conflict, we'd like to be heard ex parte
I was going to say they're going to want to be heard ex parte in camera. Definitely. That makes sense.
and in camera.
That's fair.
With Ms. Adelson present
That's
to provide some information to the court as well on some attorney-client privilege information.
Yeah.
All right, this is going to need to be memorialized to the extent that you can in a motion. As far as any hearing that would occur in camera, I will make a decision on that, but first I actually need to read
Yeah. He needs it in writing, of course, as
the basis of what you're
Correct.
seeking and why.
Now,
Thank you, Judge.
with respect to Mr. Corbett, Your Honor, we haven't even received Sergeant Corbett's completed revised presentation. That is what the defense intends to take his deposition concerning. We've been told that we will have that presentation by this discovery cutoff, and so we were actually going to have to file a motion to extend the discovery cutoff for purposes of taking his deposition. And that was tentatively scheduled for May 14th. Being that that would give us approximately 2 weeks to review the revised presentation. That's the reason for Mr. Corbett's. That's not a conflict issue, but we can certainly memorialize that in a written motion if that's what Your Honor would prefer.
Just going back and looking at the dates and the different cutoffs. 4:30 is the discovery cutoff by order right now. Ms. Dugan, as to providing Sergeant Corbett's presentation, why is this going to be so lengthy?
He's just working on the cases that are in front of him right now, but he has assured me that he's going to be working on this presentation as soon as he possibly can. I don't know of any new information in the presentation than what's already been given to him. It's more of formatting and making it look better as opposed to anything substantive. And my memory, if it serves me correctly, is that prior defense counsel's
Rashbaum.
deposition of him was done after the same, as far as them getting the copy of what we were going to use, as far as everything substantive we were possibly going to use is in there. But, you know, the final result might look better at trial and be formatted in a different way. But substantively, it was all there. We certainly, and we want to be reasonable. We do object to, as far as all of these witnesses, they sent us about 24 hours they need to depose several witnesses. We worked with them to get times that we are available, and we'll continue to do that. Some of the witnesses have never been deposed before. We obviously have no objection to that. Some of the witnesses have been deposed by prior counsel of other co-defendants. Looking at the rule 3.220, it says any cases, including ones with multiple co-defendants or even consolidated cases, no one should be deposed more than one time unless good cause is shown. If it's something that pertains to their client that's, new, we don't have any objection to that. But as far as just setting these people for hours and asking them a lot of the same information that's already been said in prior depots, we would object to ask and answer and not want those people to have to be deposed again. And then as far as the folks that they named, I think it was Agent Stanford and Corbett and Rob Adelson, that Donna Adelson's former counsel has deposed. As the court said, we would ask that good cause be shown. We're fine with that being ex parte and in camera. But we would ask to have that done, be able to weigh in on that from our side as well in those same situations, and object to them being deposed again.
Also,
if there is
I'm unfamiliar with those terms. So ex parte means without the other party, right? The other side. And in camera, of course, just means in the judge's chambers.
Some new information in Corbett's presentation as of April 30th that they didn't know about before. We would absolutely be fine with him being deposed on that information, but just not having to go back through what's already been said with, hours and hours of depots and prior testimony.
All right. What I am not fine with is moving this trial date if it does not need to take place. April 30th is the discovery cutoff.
Did anyone hear that? Hold on, let me back it up. He says moving the trial date. That's what I'm like, what?
Been said with, hours and hours of depots and prior testimony.
All right. What I am not fine with is moving this trial date if it does not need to take place.
Right. So what he's saying is, I don't want to move the trial date if I don't have to. I mean, but like I heard him when I was watching this the other day, like I heard him say move the trial date. I'm like, no, because we all, rumor has it, right, that Wendy's arrest is going to happen after Donna's convicted. It could happen before, right? We don't know. However, that is a common thing. And the other reason I think too that happens a lot, right, with these cases when you got lots of people, lots of co-defendants, because you want to give whoever is currently the one facing trial, you want to give them the maximum amount of time to change their mind and rat on the other person, right? Like give her, like, in other words, if they go ahead and arrest Wendi ahead of Donna's trial, the odds of her throwing Wendi under the bus go down. Now, do they need that? No. Would I love to see Donna throw Wendi under the bus? Yes. But like a great example too, like with Katie and Vanois, Charlie was arrested before her retrial, right? So they didn't wait for that retrial to arrest him. But anyway, so, I think part of it too, because when you think about the state and wanting, and like how they, like with the money, right? The reason why they do the plea deals, right, is to try to save money because trials are fucking expensive, right? So it's like, if they can get people to plea, we talked about this a lot on the earlier live stream with Shanna Gardner, right? In the false confession. If they can get people to plea, whether it's through whether it's through coercion, whether it's through, we'll give you less jail time, whether it's through whatever, right? Whatever they can do to get people to plea. Like take Luis Rivera, for example, protection from the other gangsters and the Latin Kings, whatever it is. They're going to do that because why? They're trying to save money on going to trial, even though it's everybody's right. So, again, the more they have against, if you've got somebody who's not yet been charged, right? The more they have against you, the easier it'll be for them to try to talk you into pleading. So let's just say, again, to use it as an example with Wendi. The idea would be, right, that potentially, let's say on the eve of Donna's trial, right, Donna throws Wendi under the bus. So again, maybe they already have enough to arrest Wendi, right? However, that might not be the only motivation. It might not be just, do we have enough to arrest her? It's like, do we have enough to not only arrest her, but force her to take a deal because we have so much against her, so that way we can save money for the taxpayer dollars and whatnot, right? If that makes sense. So it's like, with everything they got against Wendi, is that, it's like, well, if we have all that, like, yeah, we can arrest her, but like, will that convince her to take a deal? But then it's like, oh, well, plus your mom already spilled the beans, we already know, right? Then the odds of being able to convince her to take a plea deal might increase. Like, that's true with any scheme like this, right? That's just sort of, potentially why they do it that way. But having said that, the word on the street initially was like, Wendy's going to be arrested soon. And then there was some clarification that it probably meant after Donna's trial. My personal take is it could be sooner, because that was the initial thing. And then word kind of spread. And then it became after Donna's trial, which is, and to me, is not soon. Right. So I don't know. It could be because they're like, Wendy's watching and we don't want her to be, we want to catch her unawares. Maybe. I don't know. Like, maybe it's because they didn't want her to flee. Right. That if Wendi was watching and then she was like, oh, soon, like, as in I've got a week. Right. Would she flee? Versus like, oh, no. By soon, we mean after Donna's trial. That's like 6 months away. I don't know. So you never know. I mean, but I'm relaying what the message is, what the information has been. Right. So that's fucking hilarious. To submarine her out. Oh my God. That's fucking hilarious. I just was explaining that, Twiz. Twiz is saying, why would they wait if they have the damn evidence? I just gave a long explanation as to the reasons potentially why. Would you like me to repeat all of that? The people who are listening are like, no, repeat it. We just heard it. But long story short, because it might be because they feel like potentially it'd be easier for them to talk Wendi into taking a plea deal so that they can save taxpayer dollars for going to trial. Again, because the thing with the plea deal, it's not just about ratting on somebody else. That's a lot. That's a big part of it. However, even when it's just one defendant, right, they still try to do it. Why? Because it saves taxpayer dollars. They try to make people not go to trial. Oh, you were? Well, then I don't know. I'm glad you were here. I maybe didn't do a good enough job explaining it. I don't know. Did you guys, does it make sense to anybody else what I'm saying? Like the deal, the plea deal, right? What's the point? What's the reason for the plea deal? It can be to try to get them to rat on somebody else, right? It can also just be to get, sometimes it can be, or okay, let's say a confession, right? It can be because it's like, well, they don't really have that much evidence, but if they have a confession, they feel like, okay, that's going to count towards, here's some evidence or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't ever make an arrest on just a confession alone. You have to have other things too. Right. But like we talked a lot about this in the Shanna Gardner live stream, which is, for anyone who missed it, it's worth watching. There's some crazy ass shit going on in that case. That has to do with false confessions. And I called it months ago, but anyway, so, it can be to get them to rather, but again, the thing is like, they want you to take the plea. They want you to take the plea, whether there's a confession or not. They want you to take a plea deal, right? So that they can save money and not have to go to trial. Like that, it's like, that would be the preference. The other thing too, right? Of course, as we know, with each trial, they get more evidence, right? There's more things that come out. No one can predict entirely what's going to come out on the witness stand, especially when you've got somebody like Rob Adelson who's going to testify for the first time at this trial, right? So with what my point is, like with each of these witnesses, what we've seen is they had enough evidence before the subsequent trials, and sometimes they didn't wait to arrest. But the only example in this case where they did wait to make an arrest is Donna after Charlie's conviction. But again, it's not like the only thing that changed as that week went by was like she had that hot mic moment. But again, that had nothing to do with probable cause for arrest. They already had that. They already had her indictment done. And when we read it, I pointed that out because the indictment was already concluded and already written, or not the indictment, sorry, the PCA. And the only thing that was added at the end was like, here's the new information. By the way, she's going to leave the country in, it was like T-minus 5 hours, which is like, you guys better get your asses up to Tallahassee because it's an 8-hour drive, right? It was just a timeliness thing, but it had nothing to do with probable cause. So like they could have made the arrest earlier with Donna, right? I don't know. Am I making any fucking sense? Where is George? Great question. Oh my God, you guys are funny. You guys are funny. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just, you don't always see this many defendants in a case, right? Like there's a lot of people here. But I'm glad it makes sense to you. But I mean, to my knowledge, this is a common way of doing it. It's like, unless it's RICO, but that's a whole different animal, like, and then you charge everybody together at the same time. But that's part of the statute anyway, in order to bring those charges. It's just a different animal. Yeah, here it's like, one by one dropping like flies. And Fievel, they're coming for you, Fievel. Okay.
April 30th is the discovery cutoff. We're going to leave that in place for now. Everyone is to work accordingly up to the deadline. If it has to be extended,
keep them in line. Judge Everett, please.
it will.
No,
But there's still 2.5 months to that point, right?
Yes, sir.
We'll draft the motion, Judge.
Yes, sir. And, certainly by way of a brief response, and I will be brief, the rule cited by the state contemplates that the co-defendants are all being tried at the same time or have all been arrested. It defies logic to believe that
These trials have been spaced out.
Hold on. That's odd. I forgot this was a part of this hearing. Literally what we were just saying. Hold on. What are they talking about?
are all being tried at the same time or have all been arrested. It defies logic to believe that
These trials have been spaced out. They are not co-defendants that are linked by one information.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Lastly, this morning I provided
thank you, Judge Everett, because that's when I was just saying RICO, that would be the difference, right? In RICO, you've got multiple co-defendants linked by one information. I'm glad he said that. So now I can articulate that better. Versus these are co-defendants that are linked, each one with a separate information, right?
proposed order to the court from the August 30th and September 6th motions in limine. I prepared those based on the transcripts that I have prepared of those hearings. I provided them to the state twice over the last month and have not gotten a final answer. Does Your Honor want me to submit the transcripts from those hearings?
You can do so. I'll review them. Ms. Dugan, as the proposed order, is the state objecting to it, or you don't have an opportunity to review it?
I did speak with Ms. Kaplan about that and we reviewed it. We don't have any objection.
Very well. I'll still review the transcripts to ensure it is accurate, but trust but verify. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I love that he says trust but verify. That's amazing. Trust but verify.
There are some additional motions to suppress and a handful of motions in limine. I'm hoping to get the motions to suppress filed in the next week to 10 days so that those can be heard properly. The motions in limine, we're certainly going to try and get those filed early to mid-April so we can get those heard as well. I just wanted to let the court know that the motion to suppress that we filed last week is not the only one that's coming.
I believe the date that we're going to have for the pretrial motions that was going to take place on Friday, May 16th. Obviously, more that can be heard prior to then will lessen the burden on that day, but anything that's still outstanding, that's the day it's going to be heard before we move into trial posture.
Yes, sir.
Trial posture.
Certainly with the scope and breadth of the motions that we are working on, we'll try and get those on your calendar much sooner. And lastly, I wanted to update the court on the expert that has been retained. I spoke with them for the motion for change of venue. I spoke with them yesterday, Mr. Fulford and I did, and they are.
You guys, do you think they're going to bring in Dr. Adelman? Which would be really funny because we've got Adelman and Adelson. Oh boy, that would get confusing. What's funny is in the motion for change of venue, it's like we want to get out of Tallahassee, but then in the motion for bond, she's like, we'll stay in Tallahassee. Anyway.
Intending to provide us with the end product by the end of the first week of March. And as soon as we have that, we'll be providing that to the state and get that set, provide that to the court as well and get it set for a year.
All right. Concerning this report, and I'll leave this to your judgment, but do any of these matters need to be filed under seal to alleviate essentially the issue you're complaining of through the motion?
That is identical to like what the state tried to say in BK's case, right, in Idaho. That's really funny that he's saying that because, you know, like in other words, by them in their filings related to the motion to change venue, that it was also that they were also disseminating information to taint the jury pool. That's what he's literally saying right here.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. Dugan, does the state have anything to raise today?
Why is that making noise? So that's why he was saying, hold on. So he was saying file it under seal, right? So that you don't contribute to the problem.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. Dugan, does the state have anything to raise today?
No, sir.
So Miss Dugan, by the way, is the other prosecutor. You know, George is the lead in this case, but Sarah Dugan, again, same people been here since day fucking one. Sarah Dugan's been here since day one. She's also a blonde lady, which is funny that it's just two blonde ladies. It's like just the two of them. It's like there's not a third, it's the two of them. So whenever you see these trials, it's going to be Georgia or it's going to be Sarah. But Georgia does most of the questioning.
Coming through the deadlines, as we've spoken about before, the discovery deadline will be April 30th.
Wait, did Heather miss Fievel? How is that possible? I feel like I've shown Fievel bizarrely. Did you miss Fievel? I've also posted it in the Discord. I tagged you, Heather. There she is. You know, so I was thinking about too, you know, Fievel goes west, and I was thinking about how funny it is because Wendy did go west, right? She went from Florida to Austin, Texas. Poor Austin, Texas, having to deal with her.
We'll also have one last case management on March 25th at 2:30. As needed from there, we'll have different hearings on motions and we'll continue to move to June 3rd.
Yeah, where that picture's from during the live stream, it was one of the times where I paused it. I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect Fievel picture. And I was like, I'm gonna take a screenshot. And like, literally that's what I did. And then I had said to you guys, like, I'm gonna see if I can try to put Fievel's clothes on her. And now the only thing is that the hat covers up one of the ears, but I had to get the hat. And I literally put the hat in the exact same position as to where it is on Fievel. But you can see the other ear. And her face is very Fievel-y, right? And for anyone who missed it too, there's also a custom emoji in the Discord. There's a Fievel emoji as well in the Discord too that you guys can use. Twiz making sure that Heather can see it. Yeah. Because I mean, Heather's the one who was like Fievel. And I was like, that's who it is. Because it's been driving me crazy for all these years. I'm like, wait, who is she? Who is she? And the problem is I hadn't seen Fievel since I was like a little baby. And so I forgot. But I was like, who is it? I can't put my finger on it. That's who it is. Yeah, it's crazy.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We are in recess.
There you go. So he's got some other, you know, again, I think she still sits there as he goes through some other people on the calendar, but that's it for this one. So the bond hearing is set for February 26th. Now tomorrow, I remember thinking they were supposed to be doing a Karen Read hearing tomorrow, but I don't think I see one. I think they had to push that out until next week. I know there's been a bazillion documents dropping there, you know. I don't even know how many. I just kept seeing notifications on my phone for like massive document drop, which isn't helpful if you're trying to figure out what they are, how many there are. And why do I say that? Because finding those documents is fucking hard. It's not like, it's like if you saw that in like Idaho, say, you can go literally and find them all and see them all, right? But like with Karen Read, you have to know what they are and search for them specifically. And even when you do that, it can be very difficult to find them. And so it's not like they're going to be available in one place. That would be amazing if that were the case. That rhymed unintentionally. So anyway, you know, since I'm covering Karen Read, I need to find those documents somehow and figure out how many there are. That'll be a whole thing, and find how to and get them, and then we can cover them. So yeah, so we might do that tomorrow. It just depends. Like, keep waiting for more shit to come out and cover. I have some more stuff. Whenever I do the timestamps, as you know, I always have like follow-up ideas or follow-up or answering questions coming full circle. So like from the last BK live stream, there were like a couple different things that I was like, wait about that. What about this? What about that? What about that? So like, I've been working on it as always, right? I've been updating shit with the maps and updating presentations and updating clips for you guys that answer some of these questions and putting them all in one compact things that we can pull it up and hear the answers whenever we forget. I've made some updates to the master list. But also I've been calling businesses in Pullman and inquiring about the cameras. And the way that I've done this is initially my thought was I'll be like, oh, I lost my dog. And then I was like, wait, that's not going to work, because if I'm trying to find out if they have cameras and how many and whatever, like if I'm asking about a lost dog, the only natural next thing would be, oh, you want to come and look at the footage. And I'm like, well, fuck, I can't teleport, right? So like, in other words, I was thinking, what if they say, oh yeah, you can come see it? Or what if they say, here, we'll put up some flyers. I'm a dog person. I'll put up flyers for you. I'm like, I'll be in big trouble if that happens, right? So I was like, I need another thing. So then I had the idea, what if I call and inquire as if I'm like, in school, like, and have I'm a communications major or whatever. And like, this is part of the surveys that you do. So I did some research and I looked up WSU specific as to like the courses that they have that are related to degrees in communication. And then I looked up like, sort of potential, like what questions would people normally ask if it was normal, if they were calling for that purpose. And there's a lot of questions, but I whittled it down to 10 questions because I wanted to be able to tell everybody this will take like 30 seconds or less, and also there are questions that for the most part pertain to what I wanted to know, but also there's some extra ones in there just to make it seem like it's more legitimate, I guess, because I thought to myself, they probably have had other people call and ask about the cameras, right? They probably have. Maybe not all of the places I called, but some of them probably. And I was like, I don't want them to just hang up, right? This is so funny because now I'm like I've done this now with every case. This is just becoming a theme, right? It started with Murdoch when I called the Sunrise detox places. After that, it was in following the Ezra McCandless case, right? I called Racy's Coffee to ask about their Wi-Fi because that was a whole thing. And I talked to the Racy's people about that and if it requires a passcode or not, or if it's secure or not. And then I did the same thing with this case when I called the Geek Squad, right? I'm getting a TV for my brother. What will happen with this? So now I'm like getting like the hang of how can I do this? And because the trouble I had with Murdoch was trying not to laugh the whole time, right? It was really hard. And I'm like, I need to try to do this legitimately and be like, I'm not good at lying either. And it's not like I'm really lying, but I did end up having to say something with one of the people I called because the dude saw my area code. He was like, he asked me, he was like, what class is this or whatever? Like, where do you go to school? And I was like, WSU. So that's the only thing that was like, I felt terrible saying that because it's not true. Like, I feel terrible having said that. Like, I feel terrible, right? It's not like it harmed him, right? I don't want to lie. But anyway, that's yeah. I'm not going to do anything worse than saying like, I go to WSU and I don't. That's for me, that's already difficult. But anyway, so, but it's just funny because like the first set of calls I made to the detox, Sunrise detox places with Murdoch, it was really a challenge, and everybody that was there was laughing and I was laughing. And, but now it's like a thing where I do these calls and I record them. Right. And it's just funny. So, so I've been doing that as well. Oh, that's interesting. You want to teach me the maps before my appearance? Now, I don't know that they're going to get into that. I don't know that they're going to get into that because they haven't covered it in so long that it's probably like I offered that just in case they wanted to use it. I don't know. My thought was probably that would maybe come up on at a subsequent one because the impression I got was like they have so much catching up to do, right? And it's going to be probably the legal issues and maybe talking about what happened at recent hearings. And again, they haven't even gone over the death penalty motions yet, right? Those are from November. So, and then after that, you have all you guys know, right? So I don't know. And it's not just going to be me either, right? So it's, going to be the other attorneys. And so, like if somebody just said, here, you can have the whole thing by yourself, have at you, I think I would get into the maps eventually, but I'd get everybody caught up. And then maybe by the end, we'd start getting into the maps. And then I'd be like, hang on, we're going to have to, well, I'm saying that. I probably still wouldn't actually be able to get into it. I feel like there's too much. It would have to be another live stream probably. Anyway, so, but regardless, please teach me everything you know. I'm surprised if there's something that I don't know what I'm missing. Like, I feel terrible if that's the case because, I try to be so super thorough. And if I thought I was like missing stuff that was important, I wouldn't even be doing it. The maps, like I wouldn't be doing it. I mean, well, I say that. Of course, there's things that everyone's going to be missing because there's information we don't have, but that's not what I mean. I mean, missing things that I should have been able to have that are like, on the record. Okay. I don't know what I don't understand. That's making me nervous. Like that I've been talking about it at all if I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're referencing. But anyway, like I said, you have an open invite too, right? Okay. That's fine. Well, that's all we got. That's all the new stuff for Donna. So maybe we can talk about it, Twiz. Oh, what was this? So, right. Well, and also he just, I assumed he was asking because of the area code. He didn't say anything about it. However, it's really common for people to go out of state for school, right? So I figured by just saying I went to WSU, I mean, that any concern he had that I was like some robocaller, I think that's what it was, right? I think it was like I think he probably thought I was a robocaller because you know how they'll do that with so I think that's probably why. And so that settled when I said I was, I went to school at WSU, then he was like, oh, okay, great, cool, awesome, So, but yes, but that's a good point, right? Like, in other words, I don't think it's that he thought I was being whatever. I think it was just, like I don't answer my phone if it's a phone number I don't fucking know. I figure like, and sometimes the iPhone just blocks those calls out. Like, remember I told that story, guys, about Mark Eiglarsh? Like, no, here's a real person. Here's someone I want to talk to, not a robocaller, but the iPhone decided it was a robocall and blocked it, even though he called like 4 times, right? So you never know how it's going to make those decisions. But anyway, I figure like, hopefully if it's not a robocall, the call will go through and then they can have the option to leave a voicemail because the people who are scammers or robo people, like they don't ever leave a voicemail. Right. So, anyway, myriad, I don't know what you're referencing. So yeah, but I was saying like, yes, the phone, even if it's somebody who you would want to talk to, it's like my phone was like, you're not real, block. I think it was probably something, or maybe like a sales, right? Because it's like, oh, and inquire about cameras. It's like maybe he thought I was trying to sell him something, also possible. But you guys will get to hear all that. I've just been waiting for the other documents to drop in BK so that we can have more to talk about with it. Although, when in doubt, we can always just do another little trip around the world because that was fucking fun. Oh, real quick, for anyone who missed it, I'm going to play my new little intro video, even though it's not an intro right now, because it was so fun to make and like high-tech squirreling over here. I mean, I'm saying that as a joke because I'm not high-tech, but for me, this was high-tech. So for anyone who missed it or who didn't miss it, here's the new countdown in lieu of the StreamYard stock one. What do you guys think? You like it? Oh, that's so funny. Oh my God. I'm so glad I just remembered this. The most important thing of all, I made another clip for another Wendy clip, and this is for you also, Heather. Where is it? I made another one. I've got so many of these Wendy clips now. It's amazing. Here we go.
Yesterday, I was taking a walk around 5. I met a new friend. We went to Tallahassee food trucks.
Wow.
Last night, hung out with her for hours.
Yeah.
Wendy made another new friend. Are you fucking kidding me? Why?
She also Googled. There was a shooting, do you know? Both she and John.
Stop.
Why would they
Google?
Why would that just come up?
Sorry. Heather says, I met a new friend on a walk. Bitch, how old are you? Hold on, just because we're talking about Wendy's friends.
My friend Elizabeth is a mortician. She's the prettiest mortician I've ever met.
You guys. Wendy's friend, the fucking mortician. What is happening? There's so many, and they're all great. I love both of those. You know what's funny? We heard when Jeff testified in Katie's trial, he talked so much about how she was literally like a toddler. It was really interesting. I was like, wow, like that was new. We didn't hear that in his interviews. We didn't hear that in Charlie's trial. That was only in Katie's trial. They just because the questioning got into it, right? About how she's basically like a baby and really immature and like, wow. I know. Yeah, let's Oh God. Yeah, that's really fucking funny. Let's just do it one more time.
Yesterday, I was taking a walk around 5. I met a new friend. We went to Tallahassee food trucks.
Wow.
Last night, hung out with her for hours.
Yeah.
Wendy made another new friend. Are you fucking kidding me? Why?
She also Googled. There was a shooting, do you know? Both she and John.
Stop.
Why would they
Google?
Why would that just come up?
Sorry. Heather says, I met a new friend on a walk. Bitch, how old are you? It's so fucking funny. Oh, I have this. This is a good one. Well, I'll play that on another live stream. So it's funny. I found some more video clips that I've made, but I had forgotten to put them onto StreamYard where they're like easily pull-upable, accessible. And I was like, oh, I forgot I made, so now I've got like a lot more. But for anyone who didn't see it, here's this clip. This is Runkle talking about Brady evidence and freaking love him.
If I was the God Emperor of, of everything, I would make Brady violations not only an ethical problem, I would make Brady violations in and of themselves a separate cause of action for a lawsuit and criminally prosecutable, such that an intentional failure to turn over exculpatory evidence could come with jail time. Like, do the work, prosecution.
Brilliant. I freaking love him. He is an asset to the planet. Without any question. Freaking love him. I have so many of these fucking funny clips. It's really funny. Oh man. Anyway. I know, right? Oh God. That's another good point. Must be a code. Must be a yeah. Everything that it's so funny is like the more you delve into it, the more you realize like literally everything she's saying was very strategic in some form or fashion. It's kind of coming out in layers, right? This is why I'm just so excited for Donna's, with each, as they reach their way to the top of the Adelson family food chain, as I will say, you're going to get more information about the person who's at the top, right? So like, it's just going to be great when Donna goes to trial. Yeah. By the way, also for anyone who didn't see it, because I know that probably most people don't know the song I'm talking about when I talk about the Wendi song and I sing it, do, 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 do. Everyone knows it's Wendi. That's a really obscure song from like, I don't know, the 60s or 50s maybe. I think there's been like one person to my recollection ever in the chat who knew that song. But because this is really important as I prepare to make this music video, I put the video in the Discord in the Adelson's thread. So for anyone who wants to be like, what the fuck is this song? So you can know what I'm using for the parody, the Wendi parody. It's there. So yeah, I just don't think I can play it on stream without getting like, shut down or arrested or whatever the fuck, you just never know because it is, they were an actual band and that's probably a copyrighted thing, that song. So I just put it in the Discord. Oh, the astrology. Yeah, I remember we were talking about that one time. And I was like, what? How does it work? I don't remember if I asked you this though, Heather. Do you know the birthday book? Because I got a story about that. And no, well, not just to anybody, to Heather, but anybody, right? Like, is anyone familiar with a thing called the birthday book? Interesting. Does it vary by the, like, do they does anything change in it? I wonder, because one would think that, well, I don't remember when it has the birthdays in there. Does it also include the year? I'm trying to think, like, would it change? Or would it be the same? Because I'm wondering about something. But what's interesting is this. So I have like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, how can I say this without something weird? Every now and again, y'all know I don't sleep all that much, right? But when I do sleep, I sometimes have things come to me that I don't know where they came from, and they tend to be actually like accurate. Like, for example, when my sister-in-law was pregnant, the way that it happens is I think that something already happened. And I'm like, I'll be like, hey, remember when you told me such and such thing? Because I think it actually happened. And then they're like, what are you talking about? That never happened. And then I realized, oh my God, was that a dream? But then I'm like, no, that was so real. Anyway, I've had a lot of things like where it's just whatever. And my dad seems to have a similar type of thing. And like, so here's what's funny. So when I was in college, one of my best friends, his name was Sam, he was a bass player. he had a copy of the birthday book on his coffee table. And like, it was something that like his mom brought by at some point. And he like, no one had ever paid any attention to it. They probably used it to put their drinks on, you know what I mean? And like, it was just sitting there. And like, and so one day we were all hanging out and like, we were like, let's look at this book. What is this book? Right. And here's what's crazy. So, you know, Sam was reading everybody's birthdays. And when he went to my birthday, it has like color, it has all these different things. But here's the thing that was the craziest of all the things. It has on there, what is your musical key? And then what is your piece of music? I'm paraphrasing, something like that, right? And Twiz, you will especially know why this is crazy. But when he flipped to mine and he read it, the key was D minor and the piece of music was the Bach chaconne. And that's when I was like, I'm terrified. I need to run out of, like, I don't even know where to run. I need, like, what? That's a bit too much for me to handle. Like, that's too much. Like what? Yeah, so that's right, Heather. Things like that happen to me all the time. Black Widow's here. Welcome. And also welcome to Kane. So like, so that's pretty crazy though, right? About the Bach chaconne and about D minor. And there were other things too, like color was burgundy. There were a lot of things that were like, are you following me? But the weirdest one of all was the Bach chaconne, because of things that are so specific to me specifically and not just anyone born on that day, that would be the thing. So then what's funny is that as I was leaving Sam's house, right? I was leaving Sam's house and I don't remember if I called my dad or if he called me, but one of us called each other. Or no. Sorry. He called me. I was leaving Sam's house and my dad called me. And my dad said, Chelsea, I got to tell you about the craziest thing that happened. He was like, I was just doing a job. So he used to do like environmental testing and stuff. Well, he was also had a PhD in music, but anyway, he could do anything he wanted. So he did many things. And so he was like, I just did this job at this lady's house or whatever. And like, you know, she had this book on the table and it was called The Birthday Book. And I literally dropped my phone. I'm like, what is happening? And I said, Dad, before you go any further, I literally just left Sam's house and we were just reading The Birthday Book. Like, what is going on? And then he said something like, I looked at your birthday and I had to call you to tell you about the Bach chaconne. I mean, it's just like, what? But that is the most experience I have with anything that could even be in the realm of astrology. So yeah. Right. That happens to me all the time. You know, it's probably a good thing I don't sleep more than I do, because otherwise, who knows what all information I'd be getting, and it would be probably a bit much to handle. But yeah, I've got a lot of stories, but I'm not going to, you know, just tell stupid stories. But anyway, I mean, I tell stupid stories all the time. I'm saying stories related to weird, crazy things like that. I do have a good ghost story though. I'll tell this ghost story real quick. This is a good one. Okay. So, when I was in college, I know you get a lot of these stories. So string quartets, right? So 2 violins, viola, cello. So, you know, I had a full ride. So like part of your job, like if they're paying you to go to school, is you perform. And so in most places, that's going to be through string quartet. And so, so the string quartet, so this was junior year. Again, I had the red mohawk. It was junior year college. I had the red mohawk, and we were going to play Bartók. And Bartók is a, well, in the world of classical music, he's considered to be a more modern or contemporary composer. By most people's standards, it's ancient. We're talking like early 20th century, but by classical music standards, that's like yesterday. Yeah. And so Bartók was Romanian and Hungarian. I always forget because he was responsible for preserving the folk songs of both countries. Let me just double check. But he was awesome. He pushed Hungarian. Okay, double checked. Yeah, he's Hungarian. So he pushed the boundaries of music. And so the string quartets are awesome and gnarly. Okay. And so we did string quartet, I believe it was number 4. But you know, when you think about like classical music that could be considered like metal, like heavy metal, like headbangable, or like punk or anything like that, like Shostakovich and Bartók are 2 composers that meet that criteria. And so, so this Bartók quartet is gnarly, guys, and it's really difficult. And so it starts out with like this slow movement that was really hard to count. I could tell stories about that alone, how we figured out how to count that thing. That was crazy. The second movement is the really fast movement. Now, this is not how it's typically done in classical music. A lot of times, especially back in the day, it's like it would be fast, slow, fast, right? 3 movements, right? But this was slow, well, moderately slow. And then fast was the second movement. And then really slow was the last movement. And it's not just about tempo, but there's a character element, right? So like the second movement, the one that I said was fast, is like so gnarly. It's sick. It's really sick. It's like really, yeah. And then the last movement, the one I said that's really slow, the tempo marking was actually grave, like grave. It's spelled like grave, but you say grave. So it's not just like slow, it's like really slow. And not only that, because you can have a slow tempo, but you can still have a lot more movement in terms of, you know, like faster note values. I'm trying to explain this to you guys in ways that people will understand in case people don't know. So in other words, if you imagine it's a slow tempo, but not only that, like there's long notes that are being held for a long period of time, and there's like not a lot of movement. And that's the last movement, right? So that's not normally how things will end. Like, you know? And so the reason this story is crazy, guys. So we had a really good vision for how we wanted the first and second movements to go. I feel like they're you know, but when we were in rehearsal, now when I say when we were in rehearsal, it's like we rehearsed at least 10 hours a week, 5. So every Monday through Friday, at least 2 hours a day of those days. Right. And then on top of that, we had performances and coachings and whatnot. So we, you know, it's like you live together, basically. You're like around these people all the time. You're rehearsing all the time. And so, but we'd felt kind of stumped on that last movement. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to end a piece that way. And in fact, it was going to be our last program for the entire concert. So like, in other words, the entire concert was going to end with this really, 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 again, not just slow, but heavy, brooding type. It's hard to just, it's a vibe. Okay. So here we were, it was the day before this big, huge recital, and we were in the concert hall. Okay. This matters. Like, we're in the concert hall for our dress rehearsal. That's where you just run through your whole program. Okay. You guys, this shit's crazy. So we were in the concert hall and we played the first 2 movements and they were like great as always. Right. And we get to this third movement and we were probably all kind of thinking the similar thing, which is like, okay, like, here we go. We didn't really know what to do with it, you know, you guys. And so again, it's 4 of us. It's at the building is empty. This is like a Sunday morning or something. But we're in this concert hall. There's nobody there, right? Because you reserve the hall. So we're on the stage, and so it's just empty hall. We're on the stage, and literally we all turn our pages. We go to start the next movement, and literally I cue the group, right? And we go to put our bows on the strings, and literally at that moment. Oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. All these recital halls have these huge ass heavy fucking doors it's a hall. So they're tall, right? Think about like a door being the same height as like the wall thing, like, because it's high ceilings. So these doors are tall, they're heavy, they're huge. They're made of tons of wood because the reason, right, is like you have to keep the sound in. Like you don't want to be able to hear it from outside of the room. Like they're like hard to open. There's like a bunch of latches. And actually, I think we locked them as well when we got in there. So, and there's like multiple sets of double doors, and they're all these doors. Think about like a castle, right? And it has these huge, think about a drawbridge and a castle, and there's these huge ass fucking doors. And it's like that. Slower than a dirge. I guess on par with a dirge. I'm glad you know what a dirge is. I guess the tempo is probably about the same, but it might be that a dirge has a certain sentiment that's related to funerals. versus a grave. I know again, it's funny, right? Because it looks like grave, but the history of that word being used to name a tempo for a piece of music has different connotations. So anyway, so we go to put our bow. I cue everybody. We go to start this last movement. We put our bows on the strings, and all of the fucking doors at the same time swing way the fuck open, like they do in a fucking horror movie. You guys, they all flung open at the same time. I'm not kidding. You can ask anybody else who was in the quartet. And like, it's shit that you don't even want to, like, this is not, you don't want these things to happen, right? And so all these doors fling open. But, you know, it's a dress rehearsal, so you can't stop playing. You have to keep playing, right? That's the whole thing. You keep playing. You can't let anything stop you when you're in a dress rehearsal or a concert. You have to keep going. So we keep going. And, you know, we're not able to talk because we're playing. We're going through this whole last movement, right? And so the experiences that I had as we were playing it was I was having these visions come to my brain, my eyes. I was having these visions, and the visions, I can describe it exactly. I can see it right now. The vision was a white landscape where it's like a frozen tundra kind of, but it's like where everything is snow. So there's no horizon line. So the ground is all snow, but the sky is white. You guys know what I'm talking about when the sky is completely white and there's no trees. There's nothing. It's just a frozen snow, and and the sky is white. So it's just like you're just in white. Like you can't see where the horizon is. You wouldn't even know if you were upside down, that type of thing. It's just completely white out, right? It's not snowing, but there's snow on the ground, lots of snow. And it's like, there's nothing there. There's no hills, there's no trees, and there's just flat. And then there's the white sky, and you can't tell where the horizon is. So that was the first part. But the thing is, like, in this vision that I got was like, a person was like crawling really slowly, and they were like bleeding. I think their leg was bleeding, and they were just leaving behind them like a trail of blood. And that was the only thing apart from the white that you could see, was this trail of blood. And they were just slowly crawling to nothingness. And after I had that vision, I felt somebody fucking breathe on my neck. And I know that's going to sound like that was my own imagination, but just wait, okay? Because it gets worse. I felt like, and then it was like somebody was trying to turn my page of music. So there was like the page kind of went to go flip, like it was almost going to flip over, and then it didn't quite make it all the way. We're still playing. And then we get to the end of the movement, and we all just stared at each other in silence. And what was going on was we were all thinking, is everyone else thinking what I'm thinking? Because unbeknownst to anyone else in the quartet until this moment when we talked about it, we all had the same experience at the same time. And they all described exactly what I described. Every last detail. From the scene to the feeling someone blow on their neck to someone trying to turn their page of music. So that's the story. That's the ghost story. It was crazy. But having said that, all of a sudden, boy, did we have inspiration for playing that movement, right? So then the next day we come to the recital, the concert, and we're like, oh my God, like it like complete one. I mean, again, we were just playing this, like, what, we don't really know what to do. Like what? And now it's like completely different. Right. And it's like one of those experiences where the four of us shared it together, and no one else was there. And, are people going to believe it happened or not? I don't know. But regardless, it's like, so we go to play that third movement again. And it's like, we all are like, we just had this crazy experience that, only the other people who were there had at the same time. And it was just wild. So that's the crazy ghost story there. But yeah, that I've just been going off on tangents. I'm not even been looking at the chat. Kane has got a fro now, maybe potentially, or he's going back to sleep. It's 5 a.m. where Kane's at? Aren't you in Florida though? Oh, working at 5. What do you do that starts work at 5? That's wild. Did I ever go there? I lived on the Blue Ridge Parkway and went there. I went there all the time, but I also, one of the houses that I lived at during college was on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Like my backyard was one of the like footpaths where you get into the, like, that's where I would go running. I went running. Like my backyard, like connected to the Blue Ridge Parkway. I clocked a lot of I've got a lot of stories about the Blue Ridge Parkway. I've also got a good story about Grandfather Mountain too. Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah. It was just pretty wild. It was like, oh, we didn't have the inspiration. Bartok was like, fuckers, I'm going to make sure you get the inspiration for this concert or something like that. You know what I mean? It was just wild. Like, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of ghost stories for the Blue Ridge Parkway. Yep. There's a lot of ghost stories there. There's a lot of lore. Yeah. I didn't have any ghost stories. I do have an interesting, speaking of ghosts though. So when I was a freshman in college, I had a hamster named Evie, and I really loved this hamster because you can have a hamster, right? And so I was living in an apartment, sophomore year of college. It was sophomore year. I was living in an apartment with one of my best friends who was also a violinist. Shout out to Kat. Her name was Kat, and she loved cats. She had a cat. Her cat's name was Felix, and so named after Felix Mendelssohn, the composer. So she called him Felix the Cat Mendelssohn. But anyway, so we had this apartment together on King Street. And so I had my hamster, she had her cat. Okay. And so one day I was at like rehearsal or whatever. And like, I didn't know. I came home and my hamster was dead. And that's not abnormal because hamsters die, right? That's just what happens. And so I was really upset because it's a living thing. And this will give you an idea for what my friends were like though in college. These are all music majors, right? I wanted to have a proper funeral for my hamster, right? And I wanted to go and bury this hamster on the Blue Ridge Parkway and lay her to rest. And so they didn't have to do this, but all of my friends volunteered to come with me. My best friend, Sam, who I mentioned earlier with the birthday book, he went and got a little shovel. I didn't have a shovel. He went and got like a little trowel, if you will, and some gardening gloves for everybody so they could each have a pair. And like my friend Kat drove us, and like we all got, our little group of friends, everybody stopped what they were doing to go to the Blue Ridge Parkway with me so I could bury my hamster. And it was a really, 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 really foggy day, really foggy, there's a lot of fog in the mountains. That's normal, but it was like extra foggy. So like we got up there we found a spot that we thought was really appropriate where there was a really beautiful view. You can see like all the mountains when you're up there. It's incredible. And so, Sam dug the hole and we buried my hamster, and I'll never fucking forget it because I think it was Sam was like, let's just take a moment of silence. And they could have been laughing at me, right? Because it's a hamster, but they were just completely like, it was such a beautiful moment. Just like, I don't know. It was really unique because everybody they were just like fully there. Like, this is the living thing that has died and we're going to lay it to rest. And like, I don't know, it was just really unique. And so I wrote a song about it called Funeral. And, this is like sophomore year of college. And what's funny is whenever I would play that song, people loved that song. They were like, this is my favorite song that you wrote or whatever. And it's way about like, it's about that day, but people think it's like way more about like a person. But like, it's about my hamster. So. I should write a book about Wendy. First thing that came to my mind. Now I'll write a book about Glenn, writing a book about Wendy. How about that? It's like Inception-y. Does Glenn know that Wendy and Donna are married, but they're also the same person? Because that's really important. It needs to be a part of his book. But yeah, so But all that, what I was gonna say is I've never actually seen anything ghosty like on Blue Ridge Parkway. I've clocked a lot of fucking time out there. The closest thing would be that, because it was in Boone, right? That story I just told about that recital, that was like the closest thing. That was insane. That was really insane. Yeah, as you can see, I changed Heather's command back. So now it's but you guys, I think that's it for this one. Otherwise, I'll just keep telling pointless stories and you guys have better things to do with your life for sure. But yeah, so note to self, I need to see if I can find this fucking Karen Reed things. Do you guys, well, okay, even if nobody cares, I'm going to read them because that's what I do. It's like, if I cover a case, I cover it all. So I'm going to read them all. Assuming I'm going to try to find them, right? Other people were able to find them. So, we'll do our best. We'll find, so that might be tomorrow. Otherwise, it could be that I do something with BK depending on if new shit comes out, right? But yeah, I'm thinking probably tomorrow it'll be one of the two. I mean, I've got other things that we could do that are kind of ready to go. We've got plenty more trial testimony to watch too from these different trials related to the Adelsons. We've got part 3 of the Murdoch appeal that needs to happen soon. Oh, right. And I almost forgot. We didn't have time to finish watching the Shannon Gardner hearings today. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow too. I'll have to take a look and see what I want to prioritize. But anywho, so many cases, so little time, right? But that's it, guys, for this one. So thanks y'all for, as always, for being awesome and for watching and for being fun squirrels. Love y'all. See you guys tomorrow and squirrel out.